Tanghali po. The hearing of the Committee on Science and Technology is hereby called to order. With your permission, with everyone, iba-iba po tayo ng paniniwala. Pero siguro po lahat tayo ay humihingi ng patnubay at blessings ng Panginoon. So if we may say a prayer together. Lord Father God, as we just give you praise and honor, thank you for your creation. Thank you for the love and the grace that you bestow upon us. Although we have rebellious hearts, Lord, and treat nature, Lord, in a way that is very destructive, we ask, Lord God, that you will bless these people who are here today, the institutions that they represent, the people, Lord God, who work every day to make our planet, our country, our barangays, our families safer. As we lift this up to you, we ask for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You said in the Bible that we die because of lack of knowledge. So we ask that today we may be able to fellowship and share, and that we may be able to craft laws, Lord, that will be in accordance with your laws, and to put the fundamentals in order. We lift this up to you as we ask the Holy Spirit for the guidance in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Can you, yung first slide? So before I ask the committee secretary to acknowledge our distinguished guest, hati na tayo, Comsec ha. Medyo okay naman voice ko ngayon, but over the weekend medyo acid, too much coffee. Science and technology pa naman yung committee ko, tapos hindi ko sinusunod yung science. And then we'll go to PHIVOLCS Modernization, and they will have a presentation. Then we will go to Philippine National Nuclear Energy Safety Act. And in both cases, we'll try to really wrap up this week para habulin natin yung committee report. Kasi these two bills are pwede natin i-push for the SONA kung we can get it running etong March, and then may 1 month during the session sa May, no? And given yung konting misunderstanding between the House and the Senate, medyo rocky ng konti. So bills like this, I think wala naman magdi-disagree kasi wala namang pinipili ang earthquake, wala namang pinipili yung lack of energy sa ating bansa, kung ano man ang political colors, no? So let me start with this presentation. Quick lang to, 3 minutes. Kinuha ko rin yung iba dito sa PHIVOLCS, no? Just to both as a first try before we do it on the floor as a sponsorship, and at the same time also, sir, ano na rin to, introduction sa atin mga kababayan sa media, why we have to put money into this. So hindi lang yung pagpasa ng bill na to, pero yung pondo para dito. Kasi siguro hindi naman lingid sa inyong kaalaman, nag-aagawan lahat eh, di ba? So syempre kung DepEd ang kaharap natin ngayon, talagang shifting na sila eh. Kung housing, never talaga tayo nakakahabol sa housing. Kung ang kaharap natin ngayon ay health, marami rin problema sa health na naiiwan na ang PhilHealth dahil hindi siya nagtataas ng premiums, medyo iwan na siya sa mga presyo sa mga ospital. So every peso we talk about, nag-aagawan niyan eh, di ba? And we're talking about 100% utilization ng peso. Wala pa tayong pinag-uusapan dyan na 10%, 20%, 30% ay napupunta sa corruption. So sayang, di ba? So let me start with one of my favorite verses. Ito, Jeremiah 29:11. Si Jeremiah kasi was a prophet recognized by the Muslims, by the Jews, and by the Christians. And basically when he said, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." It's an assurance that there's a heavenly Father who has a vision for us, di ba? Kasi hindi ka pwede magkaroon ng plano na wala kang vision eh. Anong plaplanuhin mo kung wala kang ending na nasa isip mo na, no? So, but the reason also I like this verse is I always also emphasize that ang demonyo may plano din para sa atin. So kung gagamitin ng Lord ang PHIVOLCS para i-warn tayo, i-educate tayo, i-prepare tayo sa klase ng bansa na meron tayo when it comes to being disaster prone, ang demonyo naman gusto magulo tayo. Gusto unprepared tayo. Gusto chaos, di ba? So the choice we make will determine whether the plans of the Lord or the plans of the enemy will rule in our country. So next slide, please. Let's go quickly lang. So we're going to discuss today the PHIVOLCS Modernization Bill. So siguro, sir, I'll ask lang later on, strengthen lang natin tong statement na to, yung why. Why is it important to know the early signs of natural disasters, di ba? Very basically because nga early warning saves lives, jobs, infrastructure, supports long-term sustainability. But I'd also like to focus on yung knowledge and understanding also helps us in planning, di ba? Because it's not only the early warning, but it's really the knowledge na nandito yung mga volcanoes, ito yung mga possibilities, ito yung just like yung pinakita nyo na 28 out of 30 airports will be affected pag isa, di ba? So just knowing that gives the planners the wherewithal or the necessary information to do better planning. No? So, but I think in the end, yun lang ang question parate, why? Diba? So, okay, we have 1 billion pesos. Do we use it for classrooms? Do we use it for medicine? Do we use it for PHIVOLCS? If PHIVOLCS, saan specifically sa modernization nyo? Diba? And of course, my job is to sell the idea and get you as much resources, not only pass the law, but as much resources as you need. No? Next slide. So sir, you can correct this naman later, pero I think marami to sa inyo din naman galing. So 100 to 150 earthquakes hit the country every year, or more or less 20 earthquakes per day. Through God's grace, most of this hindi naman malalakas. No? Next slide. As of 2023, we have 1, 2, 3, parang lokohan na, 1, 2, 3, seismic station. Only 38 out of 82 provinces have complete earthquake and hazard maps. May I just put a big emphasis on why we should give PHIVOLCS all the support and funds dito sa 38 out of 82. 1 trillion of our budget is DPWH. So kung wala ring guide ang DPWH sa earthquake hazard maps, hindi natin alam kung yung ginagawa nilang bridges, covered courts, buildings, kalye, aqueducts, etc. are on areas that are dangerous, di ba? So ibig sabihin na garbage in is garbage out. No? So just to show you, kung 38 out of 82 ay wala pa or hindi kompleto, I really wonder when they do their planning, anong ginagamit nila. No? That's why no wonder pag meron grabing kalamidad, grabe din yung sira ng mga infrastructure kasi precisely it was built in areas that if we had more knowledge during that time. So if DPWH is going to say, magkano ba iubutin itong modernization? 3 billion, 5 billion, etc. But their budget is 1 trillion eh. In fact, meron silang tinatawag na there's like a 2 or 3% per project na parang administrative cost. Eh sino magaling sa math? What's 2% of 1 trillion? 10% is 100 billion. So 1% is 1 billion. So yung 2% na administrative cost nila is around 2 billion. Diba? So imagine every year instead of administrative cost kung binigay sa PHIVOLCS, makakaplano sila. So I know it's not that simple, but it can be that simple. No? Next slide. So just as a comparison, diba? Taiwan has 36,000 square kilometers. The Philippines has 300,000 square kilometers. Of course, in our foreign affairs, following our stand no sa Department of Foreign Affairs, we consider Taiwan as part of China, the One China policy. But just an example, no, 36,000 square, tayo 300,000 square kilometers. Next slide. But as of 2019, Taiwan had 194 seismic stations, di ba? Tayo 123. Area per seismic station 186 square kilometers. Ang Pilipinas 2,500 square kilometers, no. So it just shows you that in terms of planning, and we know naman na, di ba, after the US, dun sa mga ka-age ko, si Lita, ating kinakapatid, so magka-age kami, di ba? Konti lang. Di ba, we grew up na pag original US, pag Japan, kopya yan. Then gumaling na rin ng Japan. Original Japan, kinopya ng Taiwan yan. And then nagkaroon ng Acer, etc. Ano rin Taiwan. Of course, ang kilala ng mga bata ngayon, panay Korean na. Korean and Japanese, no? But the point is, there were fundamentals that Taiwan and Japan did. Given na yung Taiwan and Japan are also disaster-prone areas and very prone din sa seismic, no? Tayo, seismic and bagyo, di ba? So, next slide. So, active volcanoes and potentially active volcanoes 24 and 27. Only 10 active volcanoes monitored and only 2 have complete monitoring systems, Taal and Mayon. Of course, from PHIVOLCS din to, and it's a timely reminder sa atin, especially Taal and Mayon the last few years have been taking turns, no, na nagpaparamdam sa atin. Next. There are 169 flood events recorded in 1968 to 29 that affected almost 35 million. I just wanted to, gusto ko lang bilugin. I know PHIVOLCS is focusing on seismic, but I wanted to show the media and our people na we have to deal with floods, fire, storms, seismic activity, and other, minsan ngayon pati yung pollution, meron na ring, I wanted to look at it in a more holistic way, no? So in the 2022 Countries and Flood Risk Report, the Philippines ranked 16 on the countries most at risk from rising water levels. The report also shared 30 million Filipinos are exposed to that risk. So that's about 1/3 of all Filipinos. No? Next slide. From January 1 to 26 December 2023, 15,000 fire cases have been recorded by Bureau of Fire. No monitor trend for the last 10 years. So it's always between 13 to 20,000 cases. So this is 20.7 higher compared to 12,000 recorded in 2022. No? So next. An annual average of 20 tropical cyclones enter the Philippine area of responsibility, and out of this, 7 to 8 directly hit the country, causing enormous water-related damage to our human lives and properties. Next. So kung nabanggit ko sa inyo na 1 trillion na ang budget ng DPWH, kung makikita nyo, almost a third of that, at least 25%, nasa flood management program na rin. So again, if we strengthen Pag-asa, we strengthen PHIVOLCS, we strengthen the Department of Science and Technology, and they're given more knowledge in their planning, I think bababa yung mga amounts na yan. Kasi parang, ano na tayo parang which came first, the chicken or the egg, di ba? Parang, anyway, next. What if a magnitude 17.2 earthquake on the West Valley Fault occurs? And may I just honor Senator Tolentino and others, many others, including our present secretary, including, of course, Dr. Bacolcol, who sometimes in their interview have to mention this para lang masyak tayo. Of course, God forbid something like this ever happens anywhere around the world, no? May ganito din atang presentation, Doc, ang ang Japan and ang LA ba or San Francisco, no? Dahil nga sa fault lines din nila. But it's a good backgrounder lang, 'di ba? To have on the back of our mind that 'di ba, we always assume the best but plan for the worst, di ba? So next. So just we'll give the slides naman sa media, but just an indication kung gaano kagrabe ang damage in terms of possible buildings that will collapse. I hope this is much lower given that the last 20 years, yung building code naman mas mahigpit na. Tapos, aside from rollers, Doc, ano ba yung bago ngayon? Di ba yung parang oo, di ba may mga, basta't may mga technology na ngayon, no, to deal with the earth, and wherever na meron ng mapping ang PHIVOLCS, bawal to build on top until 3 meters away, 5 meters on both sides, di ba? So that really helps the architects and engineers in all their building. Dun sa kompleto yung mapping, di ba? Okay, next. So next slide. So these 3 slides just shows, di ba, the difference pagka lives, pag property, and in terms of pesos, yung possible mga losses at kung saan, no? Okay, next. So ito ang possible casualties, and it's not only Metro Manila, but it's basically greater Metro Manila, no? Meaning Southern Luzon and Central Luzon. Next. Yeah. Given na marami pa rin light material and old buildings, no, more than 100,000 ang estimate, and na pwedeng mag-collapse, and more than 1 million people will be homeless. And we know how hard it is to have temporary relocation, even if you're just talking about 500, 1,000 people. What more if you're talking about 1 million people, no? Next. Schools, hospitals, firehouse, they won't be exempt, no? Unfortunately, I don't think most. I hope some of our schools, firehouse, police are made in a way that will withstand the strongest earthquakes. Pero ang tingin ko sa budget, parang pare-pareho eh. Parang even in areas, let's say Bicol na parating binabagyo, parang yung costing nila is not to overbuild and to really have better foundations and materials eh. Parang pare-pareho, no? So, next slide. Water supply will be a problem. Next slide. Cables, no? So, nung nangyari yung Yolanda, I think the critical first, was it 12, 24, or 36 hours? I remember our hearing here. Sa buong Pilipinas, the military only had less than 24 satellite phones. No, 30. They had 30 ata at that time, no? And we've been asking Smart, Globe, PLDT, etc. bakit hindi underground, masyado daw mahal, di ba? But even ngayon, konting lakas ng ulan, sa ibang bansa, waterproof ang internet. Sa atin, konting ulan, konting kulog, putol-putol na yung internet. So, you know, these are worst case scenarios. Again, God forbid it will happen, but we're just putting it out there so that nga we will focus on preparation. Next. So this talks about the cables naman, and telecoms possibly out for days or weeks. Next. Airports, di ba? Where airports are also not exempt. So airports are important in times of calamities kasi papasok din yung mga relief and mga equipment, pang repair, mga mobile hospitals and everything else. Next slide. Closure of roads, yung mobility, getting to people. Hopefully in a metropolis, that's not a big problem, but given very dense yung ibang areas, it could be a big problem, no? Next. So, estimate possible 48,000 fatalities and 48 billion pesos, $48 billion. So I think we're not even ready to surrender one life, what more 48,000 lives. So let me cut it there. Pwede naman. Meron pa bang important? Sige, fast forward na lang natin. Next slide. Yan. Okay, just to show that, you know, PHIVOLCS has done its job in the past to show the 5 active fault lines. They continue to map, but they need the resources, they need the technology, they need the training, they need the... Basically, kailangan na bigyan natin ng importansya yung ginagawa ng DOST at ng PHIVOLCS ng Pag-asa, no? Next slide. Um, just as an example, what if an unmonitored active volcano erupts without warning, such as Kabalian volcano, Southern Leyte? Galing sa inyo to, no? I think last hearing natin kayo nag-ano nito, no? So, possible 41 billion peso lost. 28 local and 2 international airports can be affected, and 241 people will be vulnerable. Next slide. Just to compare the GMA, Japan, the Japan agency yung sa PHIVOLCS, no, na it has 600 seismic intensity meters, 200 seismograph. It collects data from 3,600 seismic intensity meters. And not to mention, this is just the agency that monitors. Nakita niyo yung Japanese people, di ba? Nung nakita niyo nung nagkaroon ng earthquake, tapos nagkaroon ng tsunami, sunugan, kung sa ibang bansa, panic na, nagkakagulo, sila nakapila na. Diba? I mean, it was so sad na duguan, susunog yung bahay, pero, you know, they had that character values, they had that discipline, diba? So can you imagine in countries that unfortunately, pila lang, hindi pa magawa, diba? So next slide. So to compare with the US, we'll give this out na lang sa media. Next slide. To compare with South Korea and Taiwan. So basically, ang point ng slide na to is to show na panahon na we modernize and we put the money there. We just stop talking about it and just do it, because nga, we are a country that is vulnerable to disasters and calamities, and medyo malayo na tayo sa mga neighbors natin. No? Next slide. Yan. So these are just some simple pictures from the last hearing na binigay ng DOST, na very simple but will modernize PHIVOLCS. And in fact, ang hinihingi naman nila is, tama ba yung word, ladderized or by phases naman to. No? But of course, ako, I'd rather have a ideal kung kaya naman na i-front load. No? Next slide. Okay. So let me close with this story lang. No? Ever since law school, may kaibigan kasi ako na yung best friend naman niyang isa may insurance company. So every time may makita siya sa akin, oh, insured ba kotse mo? Oo, o third party lang ba yan o comprehensive but hindi mo insure? O ganito ba, insured ganyan, di ba? So I think the bagyo was Millenia, di ba? So it was the first time na napakalakas in Metro Manila na tinamaan bahay namin. So bahay namin is right in front of the Laguna Lake. So yung alulod, baksakan lahat yon. So at that time, it was around, I think, 180,000 yung damage. No? So wala akong choice. So pinagawa yung bahay and everything. Then my friend comes to me and says, uy, meron palang insurance sa typhoon, gusto mo? So sabi niya, alam mo ba na every 10 years sa Metro Manila, ang estimate nila may ganyang kalakas na bagyo. So sabi ko, ito sinabi sa akin kakatapos lang. Dapat last year para na nagamit ko, hindi ako gumastos ng 180,000. Diba? So, nagduda tuloy ako, should I wait a couple more years, sayang, etc. What's the point? The point is, we always, nasa huli ang pagsisisi. Na after, saka na lang natin naisip. After Yolanda, naisip natin sana nagawa itong mga to, diba? After the big flood in Central Luzon, after the storm in Cagayan de Oro, after all of this, sana. So we have a bill that will be presented to us today that will address, many things that hindi na natin kailangan sabing sana, no? Or science naman. Science, hindi natin pinasa kaagad yan. So hopefully this is our last hearing, and I'm quite sure naman supportive ang ating mga House and Senate. The objective here, sirs and ma'ams, is to sabay-sabay tayo mag-lobby, kasi usually ang submission nyo ng budget nyo is di ba? March or April sa DBM para umabot sa SONA. So if we can fast-track this bill, they can put the money, then hopefully mapabilis tayo. So I'll defer to our committee secretary. Can you please recognize everyone muna? Then it's a freewheeling hearing, so we'll recognize muna yung presentation, then anyone can comment afterwards. We can have a discussion. Then we'll move to the next topic. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Science and Technology, we have Undersecretary Teodoro Gatchalian, as well as Director Lita Suerte Felipe. For the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, we have Engineer Alan Boras, Mr. Alfonso Singayan, Ms. Jenna Lee Sablay, Ms. Marigold Bulos, Mr. Aristotle Miklat. For the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, we have Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, together with Mr. Carl Vincent Soriano, Ms. Genesis Sapla, Ms. Angela Montes. For the Department of Information and Communications Technology, we have Engineer Roderick Escolanco. For the Department of Budget and Management, we have Attorney Tricia Baraan. For the Bureau of Treasury, Director Dominic Mariano. For the Department of the Interior and Local Government, Attorney Cynthia Loriano Pulido. For the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, Attorney Aliyah Comagul, together with Anthony Santos. For the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Mr. Luis Paulo Masangkay. For the Department of Energy, Engineer Raul Drapete, together with Mr. Richard Dennis Pimentel, Director Myra Roa, and Sheila De La Cruz. For the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, Attorney Chris Saruca. For the Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino, Mr. Salvador Sagadal, Mr. Roy Rene Kagalingan, Mr. Gregory Granada. For the Philippine Commission on Women, Attorney Maria Sofia Isabella de Castro. For the Bases Conversion and Development Authority, Attorney Kim Raisa Uy, together with Michael Jose Villadones. For the Union of Local Authorities in the Philippines, or ULAP, Ms. Giselle Manuel. For the Philippine Red Cross, we have Mr. Leonardo Ebajo, Mr. Robert Rebua. For the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute, the Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazards, or the Project NOAA, we have Dr. Likha Minimo. That's all for now, Mr. Chair, but we also have a few guests from the Civil Military Operations Regiment. We have Lieutenant Colonel Norly Oropesa, Lieutenant Colonel Alberto Ramirez, Lieutenant Colonel Gerald John Saldo, Major Reggie Go, Major Ron Villarosa Jr., Major Glenn De Ramos, PFC Danilo Lorete, and Sergeant Marlon Lalugan. We also have volunteers from the Red Cross, Mr. Wincy Mendoza, Ms. Agnes Isidoro, Ms. Fe Nobleza, Mr. Bernard Sekig. For the Higher Education Institution, from the College of Science and Computer Studies of De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, Mr. Ulysses Grant Valle. That's all for now, Mr. Chair. PHIVOLCS, sir. Thank you.
So again, thank you everyone for being here. After yung presentation, just raise your hand if you want, or just indicate kay Comsec if you want to speak, questions or suggestions or violent reactions. Okay lang, or very warm support is also welcome, no? So, sir?
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to present modernization plans of PHIVOLCS. Basically, it's the same slides that I presented last year, but for the benefit of those who were not here last year, that I'll be presenting the same slides. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so basically, well, everybody knows that the Philippines is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, and that's the reason why every now and then we are being jolted by earthquakes, and we also have volcanic eruptions, and sometimes tsunamis. We have 175 active fault segments, and these are all capable of generating minor to major earthquakes, and we have 6 trenches. These are all capable of generating light to, again, great earthquakes. When you say great earthquakes, these are earthquakes that have magnitudes 8 and above. And we also have 24 active volcanoes and 27 potentially active volcanoes. Okay, so next slide, please. Now, why do we need to modernize? This has already been elaborated earlier by Senator Cayetano, but sasabihin ko ulit. Okay, so as Senator Cayetano, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, as Senator Cayetano explained earlier, we have 24 active volcanoes and 27 potentially active volcanoes. And out of the 24 active volcanoes, only 10 volcanoes are currently being monitored by PHIVOLCS, and only 2 have complete monitoring systems. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see in this diagram, out of the 10 active volcanoes from the 24 active volcanoes, only Mayon and Taal have complete monitoring instruments. Okay, next slide. Now, let me give you some statistics of what would be the human and as well as the economic impacts if an unmonitored active volcano would erupt. For example, we have here the Gatchalian volcano, which is located in southern Leyte, and it would affect, if it erupt, it would affect around 241,000 inhabitants. And southern Leyte has a total GDP of 41 billion. And if it erupts, around 30 airports rather, will be affected by ashfall. Next slide. So again, this was shown earlier. As of 2019, Taiwan, which has a smaller land area as compared to the Philippines, has 194 seismic stations. On the other hand, Philippines, which has almost 10 times the land area of Taiwan, has only 123 seismic stations. So we are targeting 300 seismic stations so that the density would be 1 station per 1,000 square kilometers. Next slide. There is also a pending bill in the Senate, which is a Senate Bill number 2316, filed in 2017 by Senator Mark Villar, entitled An Act Instituting a Comprehensive Earthquake Monitoring and Early Warning System, appropriating funds thereof and for other purposes. So we would like to thank Senator Villar for filing such a bill. Basically, the objectives of the said bill can already be incorporated by under the PHIVOLCS Modernization bill. And as we are already doing what the SBN 2316 proposes, such as the establishment of nationwide real-time monitoring system. So PHIVOLCS is currently operating 87 remote seismic stations that are located in the country. So these seismic stations are transmitting in real time and equipped with solar power to operate continuously. Next slide. And again, these are previous slide pa pala. Okay. So the data from being received at the main office are also being simultaneously received in Davao City. These are our mirror stations in Tagaytay, and soon to open the San Fernando seismic station in Cebu. This will be inaugurated in April. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, the seismometers are installed inside the seismic vault, and the seismic data that are recorded are being transmitted using satellite technology. So again, basically the provisions of Senate Bill 2316 can be incorporated under the PHIVOLCS Modernization Bill. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now, so why do we need to add? Why do we want to add more? Okay, so this is to again monitor the number of earthquakes that we have. For example, in 2023, we have 16,000 earthquakes recorded, 16,655 earthquakes, and in 2022, we have around 14,000 earthquakes entire year. In 2023 alone, during the magnitude 7.4 earthquake in Surigao, we recorded around 8,000 aftershocks. Okay, so why do we want to add more? Okay, so basically this is to increase the detectability and location capability of our seismic network. For small earthquakes, especially for faults na walang masyadong earthquake activity prior to big events. One of these is the West Valley Fault. And we know that the West Valley Fault is very much active, but it records very low seismicity. So another reason is to be able to reveal the traces of active faults with no clear surface manifestations. Next slide, please. Okay, now let me show you the number of fatalities. Again, this was already shown earlier. In the event of Imang 7.2 earthquake that will occur along the West Valley Fault. So as of 2016, the total number of casualties in Metro Manila and nearby provinces will be about 48,000. Almost similar to the Turkey earthquake last February 2023. Turkey earthquake, 55,000 yung casualties nila. Okay, so next slide, please. In our country, 66 out of 82 or 80% of the provinces are exposed to tsunami hazards, which is not surprising because we are an archipelago. And December 2 last year, there was a tsunami in Surigao. Buti na lang, hindi masyadong mataas, only around 0.5 meters high yung tsunami waves and there were no casualties. There are also 832 coastal municipalities, 25 coastal cities, and 62% of the Philippine population are in coastal municipalities or cities. Currently, we only have 29 existing sea level monitoring stations for tsunami detection. We are planning to establish at least 50 more tsunami stations. And okay, there have been around 40 tsunami events in the past 400 years. So this means that there's about one tsunami event every 10 years. Next slide, please. Okay, so we need to establish at least, as I mentioned earlier, we need to establish at least 50 more stations for tsunami detection, develop effective warning systems, and install sensors offshore close to tsunami sources. Next slide. Okay, so there are currently 28 provinces at risk from active volcanoes. And 24 out of the 24 active volcanoes, 21 have incomplete hazard maps. Next slide.
Sir,
Yes,
just on
sir.
that, so what would you need para i-complete yung hazard map? So parang can you take us through the process or the equipment or anong kailangan nyo para makompleto yung hazard maps?
We need more hazard mappers. Again, we have like, for example, hindi lang sa volcano, for example, tsunami. We only have one tsunami hazard mapper in PHIVOLCS. So kung aalis yan, okay, mahirapan naman kaming...
So aside from mappers, sir, for example, yung mga LiDAR technology, ginagamit na rin yan?
Yes, we're also using satellite images to... In fact, isa yan sa the first step in hazard mapping.
And yan not necessarily you have to buy, but you need the money to use it also.
That's right.
Pero may available, di ba?
May available naman. Ang kailangan lang namin would be people to do field verification on the hazard maps that we have generated using satellite
Quantify nyo naman po yun.
That's right.
Kasi later, ang ating paborito, si Attorney Baraan. Ma'am, later I'll ask you a favor or gawin ko na ngayon, sir, with your... Parang can we look magkano ang kailangan ng Pag-asa, magkano kailangan ng PHIVOLCS, tapos ano pa sa DOST for yung early warning, mapping, etc. Then how much realistically ang ilalagay ng DBM for 2025? Kasi nung nakita ko yung countries at saka yung I'm quite sure that if we ask Japan for a soft loan dyan or a long-term project, isa sa the Japanese are very good at that and they love to help, di ba? The Philippines. So I mean, whatever we can already afford the next 2-3 years, bayaran na. But whatever long-term, ba't pa tayo maghihintay, di ba? Baka sakaling pwede nating i-foreign assisted yon. Then may I ask the DBM's help in putting that together? Sir, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, aside from that, again, pinaka-importante talaga, we can do desktop mapping using satellite images, but ang pinaka-importante would be geologists to verify this on the field, the hazards, to check if meron tayong desktop interpretation, but again, we still have to verify this on the field. And yun yung kailangan talaga namin na as of now, kasi konti lang yung hazard mappers namin.
Ano ba tayo, sir? May program ng DOST to, how do I put that, to entice or to na mag-scholar?
Meron naman, sir. The thing is, ang problema namin would be walang applicants, for example.
Yeah.
Kasi
Can we look at that? Diba? Alimbawa, from the Philippines high school system all the way to college, what if i-scholar natin, but you have to spend 5 years with PHIVOLCS, or for every year you na libreng you spend them, diba? So, yes, it will take some time, pero, you know, nung first term ko, parang narinig ko na to eh. So, minsan naiisip ko, pag tumatanda ka, dun mo lang naiisip na time is on your side eh, diba? So yes, if we can immediately hire, why not, diba?
That's right.
But if we need 10 a year and we can have a program of putting 20 a year in school and then hope that 10 of them will be with us, diba? You said that you wanted?
Yeah, I was about to say, sir, that the policy of the Science Education Institute in providing scholarship to people interested to go into further training and education, especially higher education, on specific specializations like meteorology, is that there is a service return being required by the government after the completion of their education.
I totally agree. Ang nakikita ko lang dyan yung economic side. So halimbawa, nandyan ating mga kaibigan from the Philippine Army. Now and then, yung Philippine Air Force, diba? Tuwing magbo-boom yung aviation industry, nagpapirate ng mga piloto sa Air Force eh. Diba? Tuwing nagbo-boom ngayon, katulad ngayon na after the pandemic, sobrang in demand na naman ng Filipino nurses. So the reality is kahit may scholar ka, kahit ano, 'di ba, yung dalawa kalaban natin eh, yung one, yung ayaw nila yung course or yung ano na yan because they think walang future, or two, may future pero nasa ibang bansa, wala sa atin, 'di ba? But I really wouldn't mind, let's say, if we had them as full scholars, 5 years sila sa atin, if they're well trained, mapirate sila, they have a better future. But while they're here 5 years, they're also training their replacement, di ba? So, as long as may continuity tayo and may... So, put it another way, Yusek, parang let's look at the economic side and how we can give them the incentives, di ba? So, parang kung hindi rin naman sila makakatapos kung walang scholarship, that's the first incentive. But what can we give them the first 5 years and then really not hamper their growth afterwards, di ba? Kung gusto lang mag-private or mag-abroad, then that's up to them. Of course, we'll be more than pleased, katulad ni Secretary, that he spent his life in DOST, but it's an individual choice talaga. Eh, no? Yung ini-input ko lang to kasi nga, it's my third term sa Senate eh. Usually, we try to solve it right away and then don't put a long-term solution. But ang solution talaga is just to start working on it. So, meaning, if we need 20 people sa Pag-asa, you need 50, you need ganyan. So, we have a scholarship program for 250 students, then hope that half of them at least would continue, would pass, and then would be with us, diba? Something like that. No? Let's try to put that together bago mag-budget hearing. Thank you.
Okay, if I may continue, sir. Okay. So for potentially active volcanoes, we have 17 provinces at risk, and all of the 27 potentially active volcanoes have incomplete hazard maps. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for earthquake hazard maps, only 38 out of 82 provinces have complete earthquake hazard maps. And the rate of generation of hazard information is slow or delayed because it is the same group of people conducting hazard mapping and research, rendering services, for example, hazard assessment, site investigation, review of land use plans of the LGUs, and responding to earthquake emergencies. Next slide, please. We are also conducting capacity building trainings for provinces. Currently, only 45 out of 82 provinces are trained on site-specific information about volcano, earthquake, and tsunami impacts. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the provinces with PHIVOLCS facilitated trainings conducted for teachers, different modules for...
Sir, pa-interrupt ulit. Can you
yes,
go one slide back? So do you recommend na i-amend natin local government code and we require na meron ngang site-specific information or training on them. So, discuss nyo na lang sa institute nyo yan. But, di ba, kasi 1992 na effective ang local government code. It's already ano na rin eh. More than 30 years na rin eh. Di ba? So, marami na rin nagbago sa technology. So, for example, when I was talking to urban planners, sinasabi nga nila, nung una, sapat na yung building code. But nowadays, di ba, even yung dami ng parking, even yung water retention ng building, even yung what kind of energy do we really want, di ba? We want coal or we want... so medyo pasay na rin yung iba. So we will be more than happy to take recommendations on how... Kasi that might also help you in terms of yung employees. Kasi kung may plantilla yung local government and all over the country, not only cities but highly urbanized cities, not only provinces but highly urbanized cities. Pag nakita nung tao, meron palang 300 positions yan. Baka sakaling dumami yung mag-apply sa course na yan, di ba?
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, these are the provinces with PHIVOLCS facilitated trainings conducted for teachers, different modules for elementary and high school based on K+12 curriculum. So as you can see, there are still gaps and more trainings are still to be conducted to close these gaps. And with this, we need more people to be working on these things. Okay, next slide, please. I'd just like to briefly mention a PHIVOLCS product, which is a GeoRisk, and how it contributes to the Philippine engagement with the World Bank. So, next slide. Okay, so between 2020 to 2021, the Philippine government availed of a policy loan amounting to $500 million. The fund was used to finance government response efforts for large-scale disaster events in 2019 and 2020 and during the COVID-19 pandemic. Among the prior actions or policy reform conditions that the Philippine government, through a Department of Finance, committed to the World Bank would be to engage at least 5 agencies and at least 100 LGUs to use GeoRisk platform. Another policy loan amounting to $500 million was again availed by the Philippine government from the World Bank in 2021. The funds were used by the Philippine government in its response efforts for Super Typhoon Odette in 2021 and Typhoon Paeng in October 2022. Again, there is also another, then PHIVOLCS was assigned through the GeoRisk platform to deliver one of the performance indicators in order for the Philippine government to help secure the loan. And there is also another policy loan this year involving 500, I think last year, involving 500 million pesos from 2024 to 2026. And again, PHIVOLCS through GeoRisk was assigned to deliver two of the prior actions. Now, next slide. Now, who provides information on maps that are used in various PHIVOLCS apps like the GeoRisk? Okay, the maps and other information are being populated by our scientists from PHIVOLCS. Now, in order for us to continue populating our platforms such as the GeoRisk, and again, this is being used by the World Bank to secure the loan, we need more technical staff, which brings me to the next slide. Next slide. Again, yung previous slide. Yung ano pala dyan, yung nasa baha, ako yan, several years ago. So, that's in Dingalan, Aurora. So, ganun kami ka. Come hell or high water. Okay, next slide. Currently, almost half of PHIVOLCS staff is employed as contract, or more than half of the PHIVOLCS staff is employed as contract of service staff. So we need additional plantilla positions for following reasons. Again, we have new functions since the creation of new positions under the Rationalization Plan 2024 in 2004. There is an increase in demand for PHIVOLCS services, IECs, hazard mapping. Hindi na lang kami limited doon sa monitoring, but we also conduct information dissemination campaigns, hazard and risk assessments, and then we help the LGUs craft their comprehensive land use plans. And then we have expanded our volcano and earthquake monitoring networks from 64 seismic stations in 2004 to 223 as of 2023. And therefore, we have more data to process. Again, we are also generating earthquake and volcano hazard maps. So if there is no modernization, it will probably take several decades for us to install the ideal number of stations and several years to generate the hazard maps for all provinces and volcanoes. So hiring of temporary staff, cost staff is a big help, but this is not sustainable. So what happens here is that we hire them, we train them, and then they leave for greener pasture. So, and then the cycle is repeated. So we really need more plantilla positions to remedy this problem. Next slide. So what do we expect after the
Sir,
modernization?
question.
Yes, sir.
So you want to put that in the law?
The hiring of staff?
The plantilla,
Yes, sir. Yes,
oo,
sir.
para sure.
Mm-mm.
Kasi rather than lobbying na dagdagan.
That's right. Okay.
So if wala nang objection after the discussion, the COMSEC will work with your staff on the final language.
That's right.
If final na siya, we can have it signed. No?
Okay.
So after the discussion, mamaya.
Okay, okay, so what do we expect after the modernization? We would be able to install the 300 earthquake monitoring stations, which would densify our current network. We would be able to, we also hope that all 24 active volcanoes will be monitored with the 8 most active volcanoes with complete monitoring systems. Next slide. Again, we are also looking at additional geologic hazard maps in the provincial scale. And again, we are also hoping for a new permanent building with the state-of-the-art facilities. So currently, we are renting, we are paying UP 27 million pesos a year. And when we first moved to UP in 1997, there were only around 250 employees. And now we already have close to 450 staff. So we really need a bigger space. Okay, and again, with or without the PHIVOLCS modernization bill, PHIVOLCS will remain at the forefront in the study of earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. But of course, we prefer na merong we will be modernized because at the end of the day, it will be the Filipino people that will benefit with the passage of this bill.
Iniisip, sir, yung new building niya?
Doon sa modernization bill, nakalagay doon, first priority would be, of course, Metro Manila. We would have.
Yeah.
But there's also a provision doon sa BCDA, Tarlac.
Yeah. Siguro, we should have some kind of reference dun sa law, di ba? That whatever, the DOST or the PHIVOLCS will, within 90 days of approval of this act, di ba?
Okay.
Para lang, kasi we can't put everything in the law, di ba? For example, what kind of building, etc. But let's put reference to it.
Okay.
Ano lang to, dagdag lang na, I guess yung usual na agawan pa rin ng budget sa budget process and hearings will be there. But given na tinitignan ko kung sino yung mga authors at sponsor nyo Senate President, Majority Leader, Senator Escudero, Estrada, Revilla, Tolentino, the other Ejercito, Villar, I assume the other Villar is also supportive. I'm supportive. So, but just because you have all the congressmen and all the senators, that doesn't mean that you will have the money.
Okay.
Di ba?
Sure.
Kasi medyo cheap yung yes namin dito So, mas expensive yung, di ba? Yung, when push comes to shove, where does the money go? Di ba? So, meaning, no one will say na priority nila DPWH, pero 1 trillion ang budget nila. So, obviously, sila priority. Di ba? So, we have to navigate those priorities ng konti. The other question lang, in the areas na may active volcano, do you have working relationship with state universities there?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Meron.
naman kami.
So, baka we can encourage that, or especially, let's say, Mayon, of course, taga Bicol yung wife ko, and then sa Taal or whatever around that, whether Batangas, Tagaytay area. Kasi it might be a great place to develop yung mga courses na relevant dyan, di ba? Di ba?
In fact, nag-host kami ng mga OJTs coming For example, Partido State University,
Yeah.
pupunta sa Mayon.
The reason I mentioned that nga, kasi baka maging win-win because the mayors, congressmen, governors, senators would put money in the state U also. Diba? So parang dalawang side, not lang sa PHIVOLCS at hindi lang yung incentive doon and yung scholarship money. Kasi kahit may scholarship money ka, kung wala namang course doon at walang facilities yung... So for example, no, I don't know really why, but it's a blessing. Yung Taguig City University is always top 5 sa criminology. So, I don't know why, pero good student, good teachers. So, we decided to build hopefully the best in Southeast Asia, a 1 billion peso state-of-the-art forensic crime laboratory. Pumayag ang NCRPO sa harap lang ng university, 'di ba? Pero magiging parang partnership, but it's 90%, 95% sa PNP, 'di ba? But it became just too logical for Taguig to support and even host and even help, 'di ba? So we have very illustrious Bicolanos both in the House and the Senate and usually sa cabinet. So, sinong hindi susuporta sa, di ba? Lalo Mayon affects positively and negatively Bicol positively as part of the, di ba? The beauty, tourism, etc. And then negatively tuwing, di ba? Tuwing may eruption. No? Ganun din naman ang Taal, di ba?
That's right.
It's not just Tagaytay, but it's all the around it. No? So, if we can check na lang if we have a line in the bill that explicitly authorizes or even the PHIVOLCS to work closely with state universities or private institutions in the area, local and international. For all you know, a lot of nationalities love the Philippines. They might want to do the research here also.
We have strong collaboration with foreign universities. And in fact, we're sending some of our people to like Japan for training and the US.
Yeah. Sige, sir. So anyone would like to give their support? Any questions? Yeah. Go ahead, ma'am. Sa UP Resilience and NOAA Center.
Good afternoon po. I am Nikha Minimo. I'm also a geologist like Dr. Macapagal-Arroyo. If it could help in justifying this bill, because we know that not only Manila can have a big earthquake, for example, in our study of disaster scenarios in Mindanao, if a large tsunami like the one caused by Moro Gulf earthquake in 1976 will occur again sometime in 2040s, where we have more population in our coastal cities, by then it could affect 8 million people. 1.5 million people will need to be evacuated. So this, we fully support the modernization of PHIVOLCS. In the same study, we also looked at the decentralization of disaster risk reduction through the RA 10121, and we found that LGUs struggle to comply with national guidelines that require science-based decisions because they do not have items or capacity to hire additional technical expertise. So I would like to support what Senator Cayetano mentioned earlier on probably we can explore having such position for local governments, or as already emphasized by Dr. Bacolcol, we hope that beyond what was indicated already in the bill, may we not just adjust base pay, but also add plantilla items in the regional and satellite offices to allow further decentralization of science and technology in the country. So unlike other departments, DOST and only DOST and DFA is not that devolved to the local levels. Although we have satellite offices, these are very limited. So we hope that this could be added as one of the provision, so that we can have delegated or devolved authority at the local level. And we know that the DOST does not have as much human resource as at the local level compared to other departments. As mentioned by the senator, the chairperson, Senator Cayetano, we also hope that we consider as well as part of the modernization, providing more regular and sustainable science and technology job opportunities for scholars and future graduates of this specialization, for example, volcanology and seismology. As we have recommended for the RRM officers, we hope that the regularization of employees in the institute is also prioritized because the losses we get from this undermines our DRRM efforts. This could also support, as mentioned already in the bills, the scholarship programs. We know based on our project engagement and mentoring experiences in the National Institute of Geological Sciences and in Caraga State University, there is ample interest in volcanology and seismology specialization. The problem is, even if gusto po ng mga estudyante na mag-aral ng bulkan o ng mga fault, kulang po yung pwedeng mag-mentor sa kanila na in the institutes, for example. Kasi this specializations would require, for example, nag-doctor na yung faculty. In the SUCs, for example, sa Caraga State, wala po silang enough items to accommodate. Kahit meron tayong mga graduates ng volcanology and seismology ng mga Filipinos po sila, not necessarily foreign doctors, and we cannot absorb them into our system in the SUCs because they are either overqualified, yung items na available lang ay kunyari instructor, that's not that cannot match what the other universities abroad can offer. So that would be very necessary for supporting the scholarship program that we are proposing. So we know, also we want to add although there's no provision stating otherwise, we also hope that in light of our imperative to improve science communication, possibly we could include translators, communicators, and not just scientists in the regularization processes or provisions. If not in this bill, maybe in the IRR, if it passes into a law. Ayan po. In Section 8, you also, in Section 8 of the Bill 156, it was specifically noted that it is for building, just one building. So I hope we can have more. I think given the mentioned already that we need at offices at the local level, I think we should provide as well in the modernization allowance for not just one building but for more facilities for PHIVOLCS. And we support, as mentioned by the senator as well, Senator Cayetano, that we support the whole of government approach. We need to strengthen linkages to public high schools, SUCs, and HEIs to ensure that volcanology and seismology can be developed in various areas around the Philippines. So in Japan, for example, because they have a legislated data sharing policy between the higher education institutions and the monitoring agencies, the data gathering is maximized. So may mga universities na itong area na ito yung sila yung nagme-maintain ng seismometers, for example. They also contribute data and interpretation. So this is something that can help us move forward our science and technology for volcanoes and earthquakes. So given our natural setting, we hope we have much to offer the world, not just our as recipients of assistance. So dahil nasa atin po yung mga bagyo, earthquake, and etc., this will allow us to have facilitation of more inclusive science communication and participatory action at the local level. So, yun po, maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nimo. Let me agree with you, no? And tama, dapat hindi building. Siguro what we can do is something like the modernization will include modernization of facilities, not limited to their main building, etc. And then have a reference to the plan, no? So I agree with your other points, but before that, I just like, bago niyo ako isumbong kay Tulfo, I'd like to recognize the distinguished Senator Tulfo, who's also been very supportive of institutional changes like modernization ng PHIVOLCS. So I'll give him some time muna.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Like the Senator said, the Chairman said, I'm very supportive of modernization program of all branches of government. Yan talaga ang gusto kong mangyari. So same with PHIVOLCS, very supportive po ako sa inyo at 100%. However, I'm here today, meron na po akong konting katarungan na pwede niyo po siguro may paliwanag sa taong bayan. Sa PHIVOLCS, merong 2022 COA report. Alam niyo na po ito? 2022 COA report. Binigay niyo po yung kontrata sa isang contractor worth 58,609,502. Isang contractor for 14 contracts. Now, ito po ay para sa monitoring ng volcanic eruptions kasama na po yung earthquake. And ang dami pong delay. Tulad na lang itong sa Taal Volcano monitoring system na 1,077 days as of December 2022. So 365, 3 years mahigit. And then Sorsogon, ganon din, more than 3 years. And then 3 years pa rin to sa Negros Island, Aurora Rizal, 1.5 years. And the list goes on and on. Puro delayed ang mga projects na ito. Ang tanong po, bakit po delayed yung mga proyektong ito at mahalaga po itong monitoring system na ito?
Yes, thank you for that, sir. Karamihan ng mga delays po dito, for one, 2022, yun yung pandemic time. And then second, yung sa MOA po, yung signing. So, hindi po kaagad na signan yung mga MOA, pero may mga catch-up plans naman po. And in fact, some of these have already been completed.
So, anong pinaka-status po ng lahat na ito, itong 14 contracts? Have they been completed? Kompleto na po? Hindi na po pandemic kasi ngayon.
Okay, sir, still ongoing, sir, except for Taal kasi hindi po kami makahanap ng suitable land. May nakausap na kami at first, but then nag-back out po yung may-ari kasi hindi raw pumayag yung may family, yung dispute sila, so hindi pumayag yung may-ari. Eventually, nag-back out siya. So we're still looking for another property na pwede naming magamit for this.
Gano'n na po kayo katagal na ipag-usap sa landowner na hindi po pumapayag?
Since last year po, sir. Nagkipag-usap po kami sa kanila and then nag-back out sila eventually. And then so we're now looking for another, actively looking for another property that we can use.
You're in the process.
Yes,
And how
that's
long
right.
has it been, sir?
I think December, sumusulat na kami nakipag-usap na kami sa Cuenca LGU.
Okay.
Ang binigay daw nila is nasa bangin. So hindi pa pwedeng lagyan ng tower.
How important is this monitoring system?
It's very important, sir, kasi it's for borehole na I think for size. Yeah, we have to dig deep and then it's for earthquake monitoring of volcanic earthquakes.
So very important po
It's
ito.
very
Kasi
important.
kung very important po, bakit mabagal po ang action natin?
Sir, ano naman ginagawa naman po namin ng paraan kasi nga when the original owner backed out, naghanap ulit kaagad kami and yun na nga po, sir, we're able to talk to Cuenca LGU but then again, ang binigay sa amin is yung bangin which is hindi pa pwede. Then naghanap ulit kami.
So meron ho ba tayong maibibigay na date or even sabihin natin year na matatapos to?
Within this year, sir, matatapos yan.
Within this year?
Yes,
by
yes, sir.
December? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think, yes.
So we will
Safe,
expect
safe.
that
Yes,
by
that's right.
December. Babalikan po namin kayo.
That's right.
So bukod po dyan, ano pa po yung mga ibang project na hindi pa po kumpleto?
Sir, I don't have the list, sir, but we can provide you with we can submit you with the updates, with the status.
So, isa lang pong binanggit nyo sa akin, 14 pong contracts to, dapat po, dala-dala nyo na yon para mabigyan po natin ng update yung taong bayan. Kasi nga po, napakahalaga po itong mga monitoring system, kaya po mismo nagsabi, pa monitor po yung seismic activity.
Sige, yung sa mention
Even
nyo, sir,
volcanic, right? Even volcanic
that's right.
activity.
yung na-mention nyo, sir, na isang contractor lang kasi walang masyadong nagpa-participate doon sa bidding namin kasi for one, remote, yung mga areas kung saan kakaroon ng seismic stations. And so, and these 14 contracts have been spread in several years. So, hindi lang po yan isang in 2022 alone. So, the report was in 2022, but yung projects were spread in several years. And again, as I've said, wala pong masyadong nagbibid kasi nga po, siguro lugi sila sa tingin nila kasi it's remote area, they have to transport all the equipment, all the instruments, or to construct those stations.
Okay, like I said earlier, ako po ay magiging very supportive po sa inyo. Has been very supportive sa lahat naman ng ahensya ng gobyerno sa kanilang modernization program. However, yung sabi niyo po, I'll take your word for it, by December this year, matapos na po ito lahat ng project and you will report sa taong bayan na nakumpleto na po. Tama?
You for Taal, sir, I can will assure you that it can be.
Not only Taal, para dito rin po. Kasi more than 3 years na po lahat po eh. Sana po lahat na kumpleto.
Well, sige sir, we'll yung ibang nasa 14 daw, sir, tapos na po yung iba dyan.
So ilan lang po hindi pa kumpleto, sir?
Walang data. Pwede naman.
Sir, again, I will provide you the update, sir. Kung
Sige
ilan
po.
yung-
Yun na po. Dapat po by December 2024, kumpleto na po kasi 3 taon na po naghintay yung taong bayan. Ano po?
Okay, thank you. sir.
Salamat po. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator, as a follow-up, just for clarity. So ang problema was more in the environment and the bureaucracy or was it sa contractor?
Sir, sa contractor, sir, kasi yun na nga, for one, ay isa din yung sa pagpili ng lupa, wala pa kaming MOA, for example.
Arrangements for the MOA.
Yes, negotiation
So,
with the MOA.
Siguro, I'll be straight sa question ko. Ang ibig ko sabihin, kasi di ba may mga scalawag na contractors eh.
No, I don't
Di
think
ba? So, may mga loko talaga eh.
Mm.
So, kasi nga, we're being monitored, then people are watching, and di ba, we want to support nga. So that's what I meant, is that
No.
there were specific reasons per contract bakit nangyari, and you're willing to explain and give
Yes,
to
that's right.
Senator Tulfo the details. But in general, no, I'm saying hindi ko sinasabing walang problema sa contractor, hindi ko kilala. I just heard of that now, no. But in general, it's not a problem with the contractor himself. It's specific problems per area.
That's right, sir.
Thank you for bringing it up, Senator.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, if I may add to what was explained by the PHIVOLCS, they're encountering problems actually in the bidding as mentioned. And the main cause there is that we cannot select these areas where these stations are supposed to be established because the criticality of the location is very important in the monitoring and evaluation of seismic or movements. And oftentimes contractors po ay do not feel comfortable when these areas are located in remote places. Mostly some of them are inaccessible to transportation.
Well, we'll call you again, Yusek Ted, pagka yung tinitake up yung sa procurement law. But having said that, everyone wants to make money. So kung mababa yung estimate, given nga na, kasi di ba, it's just like when it's on an island at may double handling. Ini-input dapat yon when you offer it for bid. Di ba? So, I understand yung pandemic kasi marami talagang nangyaring delays. But in general, if I may read ng konti yung mind of Senator Tulfo, kasi magmo-modernize, will put more money, eto nga konting pera, nagkakaproblema. Ano pa kung mas malaki yung problema? So we want to solve that, di ba?
Mr. Chair, pwede akong magdagdag tanong. Siguro I will direct my question sa MMDA because I see the presence of Attorney Chris Saruca. During the last hearing, I think this was last year, napag-usapan dito tungkol sa mga fault lines. And there is a particular area in Metro Manila na dineklara ng PHIVOLCS na hindi dapat tinitirahan na. Pero despite that, marami pa rin mga bahay ang tinatayo doon. May subdivision pa ata. Are you aware of this, MMDA? At anong ginagawa nyo so far? Na-imporma na ba yung mga homeowners doon na para siguro dahan-dahan na mag-evacuate?
Good afternoon po, Senator. Sa party po ng MMDA, nagkaroon na nga po ng Oplan Metro Yacal base po dun sa 2004 na study po ng JICA, PHIVOLCS at MMDA. At na-inform po yung mga dinadaanan po nitong ating West Valley Fault na they are living near or on top of yung West Valley Fault po. So,
At anong lugar po ito, sir?
mahaba po ito from north to south, from Quezon City po all the way to Taguig, Muntinlupa,
Senator,
Parañaque
may
po.
slide ata. Can you put on that slide yung may west so that while we're talking about it na West Valley po.
Ano po yung pinaka-high risk, attorney?
Ayon po doon sa pag-aaral nga po ng Myers, 6 na LGUs po ng Metro Manila ang dadaanan, magmula po ng Quezon City, Pasig, Marikina, Makati, Taguig, Muntinlupa and Parañaque po.
Anong part ng Quezon City? Pwede ho bang reduce natin sa mga areas?
Hindi ko lang po matukoy precisely po kung anong particular pong barangay po doon sa mga nabanggit na 6 na LGUs, Your Honor. Pero meron pong listahan po yan according to the Myers po.
Pwede ho ba pakilagay sa inyong website para maimpormahan po yung mga homeowners? Kasi I remember the last time may binanggit na mga areas, in fact, down to barangay na nga mismo, at naimpormahan na raw po yung mga residente, pero yung meron daw po nagsilikas at meron hindi pa rin daw po. So I'm just concerned when the big one happens, delikado po, kawawa yung mga tao nandoon. So they will be given the option dapat from ngayon pa lamang kung anong gagawin niya doon sa property nila, at dapat ipahinto na yung pagbebenta kasi patuloy pa rin daw ata pag-develop sa subdivision na yon at nagbebenta pa rin sa mga residente, and the buyers are not properly informed na on top of the fault line kayo, ha, delikado to, pag nag-earthquake baka lumubog kayo. Yung mga ganong klaseng impormasyon dapat provided sa mga buyers. So dapat kasama yung MMDA dyan to make sure na nabibigay yung tama information.
Yes po, Senator. In fact po, I know na meron pong atlas po yan na andun po yung ating hazard map.
What do you mean?
May mapa po ng Metro Manila kung saan po precisely dumadaan po yung West Valley Fault, Your Honor.
Okay, so ilang areas ulit? Pakiulit, sir, one more time. Quezon City.
Magmula po ng norte, Quezon City, Pasig, Marikina, Makati, Taguig, Parañaque, Muntinlupa.
Pero mas maganda siguro, sir, next time, i-provide yun sa amin yung down to the barangay. Kasi pag sinabi ng Quezon City, ang laki-laki pa ng Quezon City, tama. Ang laki-laki po ng Taguig. Kasi residente ako ng Quezon City, residente siya ng Taguig. So you have to let us know para alam namin kung anong gagawin. O kung nandun yung mga kaibigan namin, we'll let them know, and it's up to them kung anong action na gagawin nila. So wag po lalahatin mo yung buong lugar. Pwede?
Yes po, Your Honor. We will comply po.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So Chairman, that's a good question, Senator. So I follow up lang na isa, sir. So na-map nyo na yan, yung atlas to the exact fault line.
Yes, Your Honor. May existing atlas na po yung hazard map.
Kasi I remember when that came out, I brought that up here, pero ayaw nang ipakita eksakto, I guess, para hindi magpanic yung iba. Pero having said that, naglabas na yung DOST, di ba, that you can build basta't, Senator, wag on top and not 5 kilometers to the left or right.
5 meters.
5 meters.
5 meters.
5 meters, di ba? So for example, no, kung may buildings between Muntinlupa to Quezon City, dapat nga malaman.
Yes.
Di ba? In fact, sa US, pag bibili ka ng bahay, may assessment muna yun. Tapos nandun sa assessment, madidemanda yung broker. Eto nga, Senator, yung broker pa lang eh. Pwera pa yung developer kung hindi mo i-disclose sa buyer mo na meron such. So the DOST or the MMDA, meron na kayong...
If I may,
Yeah.
may available po na app, Hazard Hunter PH. Nandun na po yung location ng active fault, and then you can identify doon kung ano yung mga buildings transected by the active fault. So available po yan sa public. It's Google lang nila, that's the Hazard Hunter PH. And pwedeng
And has there been a kasi this is 2004 till now, so hindi ko na nasundan kung sino, but has there been a cabinet action on that now? So what do we do with people who do have facilities or buildings on top of the fault line?
Dapat ang LGU po yung mag-inform sa kanila. In fact, for example, yung Muntinlupa, they are encouraging people to, especially for those transacted by the active faults, to move away, and then meron silang mga incentives na binigay. They passed a resolution, I think, in 1998, encouraging people to move away, and they also provide incentives para sa mga gustong lumikas. At the same time, lupa.
And then that would be, I guess, yung nagbibigay ng building permit, hindi dapat nagbibigay ng building permit.
That's right. They're supposed to do that.
After what date? Can you take a look at that for us para ma-inform din namin LGUs at coordinate sa MMDA, di ba? Kasi at what year nyo nailabas yung mapping na kung nagbigay pa rin yung mga building officials, ma-warn sila that you shouldn't be giving those building. Kasi di ba, if you're the buyer and may building permit, senator, yung you would assume chinek ng gobyerno yon, di ba? Yun ang usual excuse Yung pag sinabi mo, sir, bawal dyan dahil ilog yan, or bawal dyan, sir. Sir, may building permit
Okay, so sir, we published the Valley Fault Atlas in 2014.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Palagi na pag-uusapan yung be preferred for the big one. Yung sinasabing the big one, how strong is that big one, that earthquake? Anong magnitude yan?
It's magnitude 7.2 based on the length of the active fault.
7.2.
7.2.
So, gaano po ka destructive itong magnitude 0.7?
The maximum intensity is intensity 8, so that's considered as destructive.
Okay. Kung halimbawa po, yun na nga pong nangyari, ano pong mangyari kahinatnan ng mga bahay, struktura within that fault line na pinag-usapan natin ngayon, especially nasa top ng fault line?
Yung houses or buildings constructed on top of an active fault, and if there's a magnitude 7.2 earthquake, of course that those buildings would collapse.
So magko-collapse po lahat ng building?
That's right, on top of an active fault.
Hindi, yung sa fault line na po.
Yes, that's right.
So lahat ng building na nandyan, magko-collapse?
Most likely magko-collapse yan. Kasi there's no intervention of a building constructed on top of an active fault. Wala pong engineering solution po dyan if it's constructed on top of an active fault.
So, kasunod niyan, marami pong mamamatay.
Well, based on our 2016 estimates, we are expecting 48,000 casualties.
48,000 casualties?
That's right.
Death po ito?
That's right.
Wala pa dyan.
But dagdagan pa po dyan, if there are like here, nasa screen, may serious injury, of course, meron ding madadagdag dyan sa 48,000 casualties dyan.
May madadaanan ho ba yung fault line ng mga eskwelahan, ospital, at high-rise buildings?
May mga schools transacted by an active fault, for example, I think in Muntinlupa, and hindi na nila ginagamit. Nagtayo sila ng ibang building. Kasi ang sinasabi naman namin, you're not supposed to construct on top of an active fault, and then dapat may buffer zone ng 5 meters.
Ito ang sinasabi kanina sa MMDA, dapat nag-check po kayo, especially mga eskwela at ospital, na nire-enforce na yung building to make sure kahit papaano maging earthquake resistant. Hindi naman 100% na maging earthquake proof, pero kahit papaano medyo tumindi yung foundation. Are you doing that now, MMDA?
In coordination po sa mga local government units, nagkakaroon po tayo nung assessment po ng mga health audit po nitong mga affected areas. So kung pwede pong lagyan ng reinforcement or magkaroon po ng mga dampers kung sakasakali para po sa earthquake, yun po sana yung pinapatupad ng ating LGUs, Your Honor.
So far doon sa sinasabi niyo pong auditing ng mga structures, so mabigyan niyo ba kami ng example para masiguro kung hindi lang po salita to, talagang sinasamahan ng gawa. Ilan na po yung naimpormahan niyo mga LGUs na inayos po yung mga eskwelahan, special hospital, high-rise, dormitory, dahil sa inyo pong pagbigay ng warning coming from PHIVOLCS? Meron na ho bang nag-comply?
Sinagawa po yan a few years ago, Your Honor. Hindi pa po ako involved noon. Pero ang alam ko po yung mga inuna po nating retrofitting ng mga bridges natin, kagaya po ng Ayala Bridge at dito po sa may Quezon Bridge po sa Maynila, kasama po yun.
Okay po sa akin yung bridge, pero mas importante po sa akin yung eskwelahan, ospital, kasi tinitirhan ng mga tao yon. Yung bridge, dinadaanan yung paminsan-minsan. Kung walang dumaan, may nangyari, okay lang. Kasi walang buhay na masasawi. Pero yung mga eskwelahan, bahay, high-rise, ospital, talagang palagi may tao dyan. Dapat doon din kayo mag-focus. Tama ba?
Po, Your Honor.
So-
In fact, yun po sana rin yung gusto naming mangyari sa MMD, na magkaroon po ng structural health audit po, base po dito sa naging study po ng JICA.
Precisely. So, meron ba? At kung meron, nagawa nyo na ho ba yun? At pwede nyo kami bigyan ng sample ng trabaho ninyo na ginawa nyo po yun, at yung LGU ay umaksyon at ngayon nagkakaroon ng retrofitting sa mga struktura na nabanggit ko. Again, ospital, eskwelahan, high-rise condominiums, dormitories.
If I may get back to Your Honor po, kasi a few years ago po sinimulan yun. Wala pa po ako sa public safety nun. If I may get back to Your Honor on that po.
Give us a list.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then give us also a list dun sa mga inuumpormahan nyo at ano po yung ginawa nung naimpormahan nyo may-ari ng mga building. Ano po yung course of action, especially sa down to the barangay level.
Yes, Your Honor.
We have to be very serious kasi very serious kayo sa palaging bibigay ng warning na be prepared for the big one, always be prepared. Pero anong ginagawa natin? Puro na lang tayong yung tawag niyan, pag may earthquake, tatago ka sa ilalim ng mesa, yung drill.
Well,
Drill is okay, pero much better yung drill. Sasamahan natin ng retrofitting, di ba? Papa-evacuate, papa-relocate ng mga tao talaga on top of the fault line.
yeah, I agree with you, sir. The best course of action is always preparedness. And when you say preparedness, dapat we should follow the building code and make sure na earthquake resilient yung mga buildings natin.
And lastly, siguro MMDA, yung po na-deklara na high-risk area na sinabi natin ng PHIVOLCS, are you guys the one na nagdedeklara na dapat hindi na pinapatayan itong bahay na ito?
We recommend na dapat walang structure on top of an active fault.
Okay. So, babanggain niyo po yung records ninyo sa records ng PHIVOLCS kung meron po rin po mga nabibigyan ng building permit ng LGU nung mga time na dineklara na agad na hindi na pwede, pero nabigyan pa rin ng building to operate ng LGU yung developer. At dapat kasuhan yon. Kasi sigurado ako, hindi na impormahan ng developer yung mga buyer. Diba? Like an example, Mr. Chair, yung may kaso ako sa NBI and DMCI, malayo lang tayo ng konting issue. Yung sa DMCI, alam na nung DMCI na mayroong kaso nasa korte yung binebenta nilang mga unit ng kondo. Hindi inimpormahan dun sa mga may-ari ng unit. Ngayon, nasa Supreme Court yung kaso, nanalo na. Mababawi. Mapapalayas yung mga may-ari ng unit. So, di ba, same here. Dapat, kung meron na palang anunsyo from PHIVOLCS na hindi na dapat magpatayo dyan ng structure, and yet, binigyan ng LGU ng permit na para mag-build, mag-construct, then mananagot yung taga-LGU na yon kung sino man mga yon. Habulin niyo po yon, tama?
Yes, Your Honor.
And would you give us a list?
Yes, Your Honor. We will comply po doon sa mga nabanggit niyo po.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Chair. At last.
Go ahead, sir.
Nabanggit yung Taguig. Tama? Kasama ba dito yung Senate building na nakatayo ngayon doon? Ha?
Taguig, nag-ask po sila ng clearance from us for the Senate before the construction. So we provided with clear.
Check na ba? Matibay ba yung building doon sa Taguig ng Senate?
Yeah, I think it's like it's not on top of an active fault, that's for sure.
It's not.
It's not.
Okay.
In fact, Senator, yung Supreme Court, yun ang naging concern nila. Kasi yung binigay sa kanilang lupa, I think, was closer to the fault line. So despite informing them that as long as 5 meters away sila, siguro ayaw ng justice na nagsishake yung foundation. No, importante ang justice. But I'm quite sure yung Senate building nag-comply. But to yung questioning lang ni Senator, gusto ko lang i-pursue isa. So, when, di ba, sabi natin 16,000 earthquakes, no? So, pag meron sa Metro Manila and you suspect it could possibly lead to a bigger one, how's your alarm system or information system now? Sa media ba direkta? Or so, I'll give a specific example. I don't know if any of our train systems are built or any of our skyways are built on top of the fault line. So assuming meron na ngang tremor, is there any direct information to the LRT, MRT, to the skyway, or is it through media and then magmo-monitor din sila?
Nag-provide kami ng information first sa NDRMC, sa OCD. So sila yung nagka-cascade ng information. And at the same time, nag-post din kami sa our social media accounts.
So if Sir Attorney Suruco, since titignan nyo na rin yung mga bahay pakitignan na rin yung MRT, LRT, Skyway, di ba? And so that we know, nakikinig din lang ba sila sa media or meron ba silang direct information, kumbaga yung famous red phone na magre-ring kung may problema, no? Just as a precaution, as we said from the start, diba, God forbid that big one hits Metro Manila, or as Dr. Lica said, it can hit Mindanao, and of course you have Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, you have Baguio City, Cabanatuan nung tinamaan na tsaka Baguio before, nakita na natin yung nangyari, no? So siguro not only the preparedness but also yung cascading nga nung information. Is it automatic or is it through calls or media? Kasi remember, as presented by Dr. Bacolcol, pwedeng down lahat ng lines So I was mentioning, Senator, bago dumating, and nandito ako nung hearing sa Yolanda. At that time, na-reveal there was only 30 satellite phones in the whole government network held by the military. Kaya for the first 12-24 hours, hindi malaman kung ano nangyayari sa parts of Leyte and Samar, no? So we didn't go that deep, but in the future, we'd like to ask, diba, MMDA, the local governments, if something does happen, are we dependent on cell phones na pag nawalan ng signal, wala? Or meron ba tayong alternative? Kasi nung araw, meron talagang mga VHF at saka UHF or ham radio or etc. But nung nauso na yung cellphone, we gave that up na diba? And then yun nga, yung nangyari sa satellite phone, then naging issue charging. But we should look at all of this vis-a-vis the modernization.
PHIVOLCS, understaffed ba kayo?
More than half of the current PHIVOLCS staff are COS or co-staff.
So bakit po? Walang gusto mag-apply?
Walang gusto mag-apply kasi walang plantilla positions.
How's that? Bakit
Well,
po?
we only have around 250 plantilla positions, but we need more. So we have additional work. Hindi na lang kami monitoring. We do other works, and that's the reason why we hire contract staff. And currently, we have 238 contract staff. We only have 203 plantilla positions.
So ilan pa po yung unfilled positions?
Around 40.
40 pa.
Yes.
So ano po yung plano nyo?
Nakapost na po sila ngayon, sir. And then, hindi nadagdagan kasi, nafe-fill up pa yung ibang positions, but then yung iba nagre-resign. So, basically, around 40 yung mga
Kaya po, bakit po yung iba, parang alang-alang mag-apply sa inyo, yung iba mabilis mag-resign? What could be the reason?
Well, they're looking for greener pasture. I wouldn't blame them for that. Kasi, for example, we need IT positions. Mas malaki yung programmers outside working for the private sector rather than sa government.
So hindi competitive yung sweldo?
That's right, if I would say so. And for example, our entry-level positions sa field would just be around salary grade 9. And then we need like...
How much is salary grade 9?
Around 19,000 or 20,000. And medyo mataas yung kailangan namin engineer. And if you're a licensed engineer, of course, I wouldn't work for... Well, ako, if the heart for public service, of course.
19,000, pag pumunta sa Saudi, that's 150,000, 200,000 easily.
That's right.
Diba? So, ano po yung remedyo?
Well, dito sa again with the current bill, yung entry level natin tataasan at the same time basically entry level would be make the salary more competitive.
Siguro, Mr. Chair, sa susunod sa Senate budget hearing, tutulong tayo rito sa PHIVOLCS na para mapunuan yung mga posisyon at mataasan yung budget nila in terms of dun sa pag-hire ng mga staff. Kasi understaffed pala talaga sila. Malaking bagay yun.
And Senator, when you came in, we were discussing scholarship and Dr. Likha was saying na even if may scholarship, wala rin mga PhDs for example sa ibang state U at kung meron man, yung plantilla naman nila for instructor 1. So mukhang meron talagang which came first, the chicken or the egg sa mga positions na whether they're engineers, IT or mga specific in-demand science courses. No? So, but we will try to put something in the bill to encourage PHIVOLCS to have a special scholarship program. May tanong yung ating mga kasama sa Civil Military Operations Regiment. No, similar sa question ko din to. So tama ho ba rinig ko? So basically walang sariling communication system yung PHIVOLCS in terms of warning and talking to the LGUs, etc. You rely on NDRRMC.
Yes, sir. We cascade information to, well, we relay the information if there's a big earthquake.
Would you know, is it the same sa Pag-asa?
I think ganun yung process.
Ganun din. So, can you find out, Yusek Ted, since special concerns ka naman, kasi nga, since etong mga nagtanong ay active sa civil military operation, hindi rin ganun kakumpleto yung communication equipment nila. So, I'll be more than happy to host a lunch or a TWG to look at the capability in terms of communication. I think now attorney but former Yusek Kim had experienced then during her days in Malacanang sa NDRRMC, di ba, na I don't know how great their communication is now compared. I know it's much better compared to Yolanda. But when landlines and telcos are down, I don't really know how great our alternative communication systems are na. But can we look into that and then I'll be more than happy. Kasi nga, tama si Senator Tulfo, di ba, yung batas is one thing, pera is another thing, but implementing those projects and having a system is another thing then, di ba?
Your Honor.
Would you recommend that you also have some sort of of a communication system internally, no? Oh.
Sorry. I'd just like to add those.
Before that,
Sir.
Can you check sa iba yung counterparts around the world,
If
yung
they have
best
their own-
practices,
Okay.
at
Sir.
anong meron sila, para at least may model tayo.
Okay.
Diba? But
Thank you.
we will not delay kasi pwede naman mag-committee amendments or personal sa floor kasi we will try to get this bill on the floor so that we can start the process.
Okay.
You were saying, sir?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd just like to add yung question ni Senator Tulfo kanina about the 14 contracts. Out of the 14 contracts, 6 na yung tapos. Ongoing yung 8.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sige, pero still, nangako ka by
Yes.
December 2024, matatapos na po yun.
Yung,
Lahat.
yung sa Taal, matatapos yun, sir. I'll check if we would be able to finish all the 8 within the year and we will provide you the updates.
Kasi lahat po 3 years na.
Yes.
Mahigit. So, again, supportive po ako kung anong kailangan para mapaganda po yung trabaho nyo dyan, mapaayos yung mga programa nyo dyan, I will support. Pero dapat, on time din po kayo sa inyong mga proyekto para naman hindi tataas ang kilay ng mga taong bayan, di ba? Tama? Okay. Sige. Isang question pa lamang, Red Cross, nakita ko Red Cross. Ano po yung mga programa meron kayo in case tumating na po yung tinatawag na the big one? Anong preparations meron kayo as pag-coordinate sa MMDA and PHIVOLCS and all other government agencies? Anong nakalatag na mga programa meron?
For the past several years po, we were involved sa NDRIMC. Not only yung sinasabi niyo pong duck cover and hold. So medyo ano yun eh. So what not only focusing on duck cover and hold, but what we are really focusing is the collaboration and yung network with other organization. We already prepositioned some of our asset po.
like in Metro Manila, meron po kaming position na medical supplies nasa Quezon City. Para if ever magkaroon po ng, just like yung nasa study ng MMIR na makakati ito sa 4 na quadrant, yung chapter po sa Quezon City will immediately coordinating with the Quezon City chapter and mobilize the medical team. Kasi priority po at that time is life saving. So later na po, at isa sa pinag-aaralan namin and we already on it, is yung access. Assuming na marami po tayong resources, pero at the very moment na magkaroon po ng movement, lahat po yan at the very most, in my experience, sir, I was also sent in several earthquake operation in Nepal and also in Pakistan. Kaya gusto ko rin tanong po sa PHIVOLCS, dahil iba po ang experience namin na encounter doon. Ang sabi nila pagka ang distance ay 5 meters po, no? At malapit ka, ano po bang mararamdaman? Magsisway ba ang building o mag-vibrate? Dahil dalawa po yung na-experience namin sa operation. Nung nasa Nepal kami at naka-shelter kami sa isang structure po doon, ang movement po ay vibration. So, anybody, pag ganun po na-feel, parang wala kang option na mag-duck cover and hold, binabibrate ka eh. Binabayo ka. So, hindi po ito katulad nung napapanood natin na sa kahit yung sa Japan, nagmaganyan-ganyan.
Mas usually naman talaga sa sway, di ba?
Pero meron pang vibration.
Bago sagutin ng PHIVOLCS, nabanggit mo, meron na kayong warehouse na mga medical
Not
supplies?
actually warehouse, sir.
Ano
It
to?
is a
Facility?
20-footer na container van, just like din po sa MMDA na nag-preposition sila ng mga equipment.
Okay, so wala pang mga laman yon.
Sa amin meron pong laman,
Meron na laman.
medical equipment
Medical equipment.
to
Very good.
facilitate po emergency
Exactly.
cases.
Saan pong location itong mga...
Nandoon po yan sa may malapit po sa UP. Doon mismo sa
Eh,
area
baka
ng
naman po doon sa may fault line yan, tapos nag-gumuho.
Hindi naman po siguro.
Hindi, dapat siyempre ipoposition niyo po
Yes po.
with coordination with the PHIVOLCS malayo sa fault line
Yes sir.
na
Opo.
para kung sakali man dumating yung hindi inaasahan,
Tama po.
nice, intact pa rin yung container na yun. At
And aside from that, sir, we have a volunteer na nurses and doctor. Let us assume meron kami mga, sabihin na natin mga 1,000. 50% niyan for sure hindi mo makukuha eh. But what we develop is the motorbike. Kasi ito makaka-access po to sa mga area. So these volunteer bikers po will be able to fetch yung mga doktor and bring them to the medical site na kung saan magtatayo po kami ng mga tents doon. Just like what happened during pandemic, if you still remember, sir, we established the most number of testing facilities. And nilagay po namin yan beside the hospitals. In reality po, yung mga hospitals, wala pong mawawalan ng pasyente yan. Trust me. So many operation na po dito, even sa local. Pagka lumindol po, wala kang pasyente dun sa labas, lahat yan lalabas. At kahit na po sabihin pa ng engineer, safe ang building namin, wala pong gustong bumalik kasi meron ka pang aftershock eh. So what we usually did in our experience is immediately po, pinipreposition na namin yung malalaking tent at family tent para yung mga pasyente naka-secure ka agad doon sa open field. So yun lang po ang nire-request namin sa local government is to provide us a space, lalo na yung malapit sa ospital, so that we could facilitate and assist the hospital of the local. So yun po yung...
cooperative naman po yung mga taga-LGU.
Yes po, sir. Wala pa po kaming na-encounter na issue na hindi sila sumuporta because it is for the good of their people naman po.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Tulfo. Let me acknowledge Senator Gatchalian and give him... You wanna ask? Yeah. Give me a second. May question ako eh. Meron. Yeah. So we can resume. Dr. Lika, were you finished when Senator Tulfo came in? Thank you for that, and we'll take note of those 3-4 points. No, Meron pa kung iba on this topic? Yes, Attorney Baraan, hopefully good news ang sasabihin mo. Wag subject to the availability of funds.
Senator Win. Sir, on the proposal lang po to have a new salary scale and yung personal retention incentive. You all know naman po kasi na we have standards po on compensation and benefits. So, baka hindi po ito feasible. And at the same time, gagayahin po siya ng ibang agencies. We note po na the PHIVOLCS is already receiving Magna Carta benefits po, and compared to other agencies, mas mataas na rin po yung compensation po ng PHIVOLCS po. Yan, thank you po.
That's a, how do I put it? You're doing your job and that's a very professional statement and answer, but talagang which came first, the chicken or the egg, or in some areas, diba? So for example, talagang kung itataas natin ang sweldo ng nurses sa local, for example, baka mas mataas pa sweldo nila sa mayor. Which technically hindi dapat, dahil dapat ang pinakamataas ang sweldo sa LGU is yung mayor or governor. But tignan mo naman nangyayari sa karamihan ng government hospital ngayon. Talagang they put in their 2 to 4 years, then they go abroad. So bihira yung very experienced nurse, unless yun nga, you know, they're, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's a heart of public service. Maybe may trabaho din yung husband nila or wife nila or nandito din sila, di ba? But for example, nurses, at least sa US, pwede mo isama asawa mo 1 year lang siya bawal magtrabaho. So there are some na hindi nag-abroad because ayaw humiwalay sa pamilya, but there are some jobs who just offer that. So that was, I think that was an issue din sa Air Force at one point in time nga na what do we do? Hindi naman pwedeng pag general ka sa Air Force or kapitan ka sa Air Force, mas mataas sweldo mo kung kapitan ka sa Navy or sa Army or sa Marines. But it's the reality that if you're a flight pilot, you'll be pirated by the maybe one. Let me talk to the Senate President and to the Secretary of DBM about this. Kasi kung hindi, baka dapat mag-GOCC na lang kayo. Para you will have different, I don't know but ang point ko lang, and I'm happy you did make that remarks kasi we can pass the law at hindi rin i-implement. Diba? But the point is, the only reason na binibigay yon ng PHIVOLCS is because precisely nga, walang aplikante o kaya umaalis sila. Diba? So, I was there from the start nung standardization law, and at that time it really made sense. But ngayon na bumabalik na naman yung specialization, the reality is kung may hot na trabaho, for example, kung halimbawa biglang maging hot yung translator and you need more Japanese or Chinese or di ba ng Korean, everyone's a Korean translator at this point in time sa ganda ng mga telenovela nila. Yung mga bata studies very well. But assuming biglang ganon, you can't put a price tag on it. But I agree with you with the present standardization law. Diba? But hindi natin natapos yung hazard map. Wala tayong pag-uusapan na standardization law ng sweldo because people will be suffering and dead and buildings will be collapsing and etc. So let's that will not delay naman the committee report, but let's maybe you can also bring it up kay secretary to talk to the executive secretary in DBM. Ano ba tingin nyo dito? Let's just make sure na kung ano ipasa natin papasa. Kung hindi, I don't know sa COA kung pwedeng consultants. I remember now what I wanted to say. Sir, baka I don't know kung pwede sa procurement law. I don't know exact rules because I'm not that familiar dun sa binabanggit yung kontrata nyo. But ang pinanggagalingan nito is if you're having problems with the 14, no problem sa pandemic kasi wala namang pandemic ngayon. But assuming you're going to build another 200, so if you have problems with 14, you might have problems with the 200. I remember when President Pinoy wanted to build more classrooms, he couldn't get the bigger construction companies to join the bid. Ang ginawa niya, nag-consolidate siya ng ilan hundreds together. That's why Megawide, di ba, came in and bidded for one or two of that project. So, tignan nyo kung pwede sa procurement law that you bid it out, hindi individually, pero grupo siya. So, let's say kung 20 at a time, para bigger yung contract, mas malaki din ang kikitain ng contractor, you'll attract more people. But you really have to include yung kung may double handling doon, kung may what you call this, contingency talaga kasi nag-drill kayo and everything. I don't know the technical terms, but I'm just saying, take a look at it kasi we're willing naman to officially, I'm not talking unofficially, officially to whether to talk to COA, etc. But let's get it done. But check nyo rin under the present COA rules kung, di ba, kung palima-lima pa, 10-10 rather than pa isa-isa. Kasi kung pa isa-isa, isa din mananalo, di ba, i-package nyo na ng, kung if you're gonna make 100 in the next 3 years, di ba? Oh. So anyone else on this topic? Yes, please.
Mr. Chair. BCDA supports the PHIVOLCS modernization as it is aligned with the New Clark City project of BCDA, which is envisioned as a smart, green, and disaster-resilient metropolis. Thank you. And will serve as a backup city from where government offices can still function in case of disasters such as an earthquake. Despite our support, we have two minor concerns since napunta na rin po tayo sa funding. In the proposed bills po in the Senate, it was proposed that the funding that the modernization fund of the PHIVOLCS will come from PCDA and PAGCOR. However, we propose that the funding shall be sourced from Republic Act number 7656 or the Dividends Law without any reference to any agency. The national government does not have a share from the gross income of BCDA, but rather a share, so to speak, from BCDA annual net earnings by way of dividends. Dito po sir dun sa law, pinapadala ng mga GOCCs yung kanilang net earnings po. Tapos naka-pool po siya. BCDA may not be in the financial position to fully fund the 5 billion in the next 2 years as proposed in the bill since the annual average dividend remittance of BCDA from 2017 to 2023 is only 899 million pesos. As compared to the proposed bill which needs, the proposed bill varies from 2 billion to 5 billion pesos. Hence, we propose that the funding shall be sourced instead from the dividends law without any reference to any agency to ensure that there will be funding. As to the allocation of at least 10 hectares for the site of PHIVOLCS office in CISES, we actually welcome PHIVOLCS to be part of the Nuclear City family. However, we propose that the terms and conditions, including the area size, shall be subject to a lease agreement. This is to give flexibility and leeway to both BCDA and PHIVOLCS in identifying the proper area size according to its needs and BCDA's master development plan. Actually, we already have the similar arrangement under one of the OST family, which is the Philippine Virology Institute. Furthermore, BCDA primarily exercises proprietary functions, and the proceeds from the leases are used for reinvestment and funding of infrastructure projects, such as road networks, utilities, and other projects within the BCDA Economic and Freeport Zone, as well as security and estate management costs. This will ensure BCDA's economic viability as a GOCC and will enable BCDA to continue its mandate, especially on supporting the AFP for its modernization program. So yung lease naman po, Mr. Chair, it wouldn't be that big. At the same time, it will help us also maintain the roads, security, yung mga ilaw for New Clark City. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Before my comment on your statement, which is well taken by the way, tinutuloy pa rin ba na binibuild as an alternative government center ang Clark in case, again, God forbid, may mangyari sa Metro Manila? Tuloy pa rin yung project na yan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tuloy pa din po siya.
So the agencies involved are still building their satellite offices in Clark?
Yes, there are already some ongoing constructions and then some are still under negotiation. Some of the government agencies actually were already awarded several lands or parang meron na pong lease agreement. However, most of them failed to find budget for the construction. But we give them enough time naman to find the appropriate budget or nililipat lang namin sila on different areas if necessary. Like OCD po will already establish their training institute hopefully within the year.
So again, well taken yung comments mo. Ako personally, I don't really favor, pegging yung budget to income generating agencies or authorities or GOCCs. Because we did that before nung hindi pa malaki yung GAA. Pero nung malaki na GAA at kung kailangan naman talaga. Secondly, good idea na dun na lang sa dividends if ever rather than specific. But I disagree with you that in the next 2 years baka mababa ang BCDA kasi ipapasa na natin yung law allowing you to sell parts of Clark, certain parts. Having said that, it happened na yung ating COMSEC ay siya din ang COMSEC dun sa committee na nag-hear nung Bulacan Airport. May I digress ng konti and just be allowed to put this statement officially and to parang officially communicate it with BCDA then. No? In the past administration, it was very zealous that we will support the Bulacan Airport but we will not have any benefits, economic incentives, financial incentives na ibibigay sa Bulacan that will be better than Clark. Because Bulacan is a couple thousand hectares, but privately owned. But it will be very good for our economy. So we want that. But Clark is privately owned, which is 4, 5, 6, 7 times bigger than Bulacan. So if you give all the incentives to Bulacan Airport and don't give it to Clark, bakit hindi lalaki yung Clark International Airport at yung new Clark City? So I just want to make sure paki-communicate lang sa board, di ba? You cannot just say that you support the Bulacan Airport. You have to be zealous na kung ano ibibigay na incentives doon, ibibigay din sa Clark unless nandyan na sa inyo yung incentives na yon at pinapantayan lang. So to be fair, I haven't looked at the apples to apples yung benefit and I haven't really looked bakit vinito yung dati. But I think we have to, diba, it's just like in Fort Bonifacio, diba? We won't give a benefit to a private group na hindi natin ibibigay sa joint venture na kasama yung BCDA. Kung hindi, diba, lamang na lamang yung private, hindi yung public. But having said that, in good faith naman nag-a-apply yung Bulacan Airport, di ba? Given NAIA and everything else, no? But sige po, let's look. Sir, what's the total funding tingin mo sa modernization?
Yung proposed is 7 billion.
Yeah.
Over 5 years.
Over 5 years, yeah. So that's what I was saying kasi Senator Gatchalian before you came in. Di ba yung is it, I don't know how you pronounce it, is it IAW? The DPWH has like a 2 to 3% administrative charge. So sa 1 trillion budget nila, that's like 2 billion. They need 7 billion over 5 years. And yung DPWH is building without a hazard map in more than 50% kasi 35% pa lang hazard map nila. So I was just saying apples to apples, di ba? If you need 1 or 2 billion a year for the next 5 years for them to be able to build better later on, parang it's just so logical. Having said that, I'm not the DBM secretary, I'm not the Secretary of Finance, so I cannot guarantee you na, sige sir, pag tinanggal natin sa PAGCOR at saka sa BCDA yung burden, you will have the money, no? But when we pass the bill, we'll make sure that the provisions of where the money will come from, or at the very least sa GAA, no? Any other comments on this? PAGCOR, would you have the same comments as BCDA, or you don't mind, or ano niyo pa?
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good afternoon.
Chair. PAGCOR supports the proposed legislation. The purpose of the same is necessary considering the Philippines is part of the Pacific Rim of Fire where there are recurrent volcanic activities and earthquakes. As we understand, the proposed legislation would require funding from PAGCOR. In this regard, PAGCOR has respectfully submitted its former position paper, which include the proposed language and Section 14, a feature of which is a proposal to include as additional funding sources national government entities with authority to regulate gambling such as CESA, APECO, and PCSO. Since same naman po kaming regulators, and we would like to submit for the consideration of the committee the current high utilization of the share of the government, considering the recent funding obligation of PAGCOR such as yung universal healthcare, Maharlika investment, and lastly, the plan of PAGCOR to privatize its own operated casinos by 2025 po.
Thank you for that. And same comment nung sinabi ko kay Attorney Kim that personal preference ko talaga is to get it from the GAA, and then if it's a bigger amount and we can have a loan or from foreign assistance, no. Having said that, Attorney, kasi I also chair the committee on government on GOCCs. We'll look at it then. Patingin na rin ng ano nyo, kamusta yung sa law ng hatian nung inyong kinikita and kamusta ang delivery nyo dyan. Diba? So that every single time that there's a proposal na kunin sa inyo, at least we'll understand now how, and as you said, no, pag nag-privatize kayo ng casino, do you need legislation for that, or in your view you don't need and you can proceed with it in 2025? Ano bang process nyo ngayon dyan?
Mr. Chair, sa position paper namin po, nilagay namin po lahat ng utilization po ng funding. And as to sa privatization po, I believe there's a pending House bill.
Yeah, so you need legislation kung
Yes
ganyan.
po.
Yeah.
And yung iba din po kasi na like the new coast na nag-e-end po, no, yung proponent ayaw nang i-renew yung lease with PAGCOR. So kaya po
So I mentioned that because usual suspect ang PAGCOR basta't funding. Diba?
yes.
So it'll be good to take one look at it na rin para every time na may bill na sinasabi eto dapat ang funding. And then yun nga, whether or not matuloy yung privatization, kailangan tignan where will the money go? Kasi kung one-time privatization lang yan, di rin naman papayag yung gobyerno. Usually yan, one time, pero may high regulatory fees then so may continuous income then. If ever, no? Ayoko pangunahan yung ibang mga senador ko ano stand nila dyan. So any other comment on the modernization bill?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, from the Bureau of the Treasury, sir, well, I'd just like to add on the comments on Section 14 regarding the Modernization Fund. Mr. Chair, perhaps we will provide our comments or our position paper that as to the proper treatment of the fund, we would suggest in line with the one fund concept that at best, perhaps this can be a SAG-F, notwithstanding, of course, the comments from our colleagues from PAGCOR and BCDA regarding the sourcing of the fund for this particular
correct me if I'm wrong, no, both from the Treasury and DBM. Pag nilagay naman natin that this will be funded by the GAA and then nakalagay, for example, kung 5 years siya, let's say nakalagay 2 billion, 2.5 ganyan, there's no legal impediment there. The question lang is, will Congress, every budget hearing, actually follow it or not? Diba? That's why we want sometimes a shortcut na galing sa BCDA at PAGCOR kasi baka mas sure. But for example, sa sports, for the last 30 years, meron conflict ang PSC sa PAGCOR. Hindi sila magkaintindihan kung ano talaga yung base nung amount. So according to PAGCOR, wala silang utang sa PSC. According to PSC, then napakalaki ng utang sa kanila ng PAGCOR. So but barring that comment, diba? That's the only difference, diba? Na if we say it will come from X amount of income of PCSO, PAGCOR, BCDA, DBP, Land Bank, it's just that it's much sure na nandun kasi parang mapipilitan sila, diba? But if we do put it, it will be funded by the the GAA, our job will be to make sure it's in the budget, di ba? Oh. For example, yung modernization fund ng AFP, that's not completely funded by di ba? BCDA. A big part of the modernization ng AFP ngayon is appropriated every year na. Di ba yung nila, yung sa laki ng kanilang modernization fund ngayon, hindi na BCDA yun. GAA na yung karamihan doon. Tama ba?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes po, meron pong isang special fund po si AFP under the GAA, which is separate na po.
Yeah, they have a special fund kasi lahat ng galing sa BCDA dapat sa kanila, sa modernization. But there's nothing to stop Congress and the executive from putting money for modernization, di ba? So kung modernization fund nila is only 100 billion pero we're willing to spend 200 billion ngayon sa modernization fund, yung 100 billion sa general fund manggagaling. Diba? So it's just a matter of will DBM put it in the budget and will Congress approve it if it's there, or if it's not there, will we get it from somewhere else and put it there, no? Oh. Siguro sir, when we sponsor this, let's put na rin yung ideal at saka yung minimum yearly. Of course, ideal if you can have the 5 billion in 1 year or 2 years, why not? But yung minimum so that we can do talks na rin kung ano yung feasible, no? But I agree with the PAGCOR and BCDA. Baka lalo lang complicated if we... Kasi unang-una pag pinag natin doon, then you have to... For example, BCDA, may hatian yan di ba? Kung saan napupunta PAGCOR din, di ba? Meron din kayong existing law kung saan napupunta. Yung,
Yes, Mr.
Sa dividends naman, I don't know if the finance department would like that or not. Kasi once na umpisahan natin yan, na doon natin lagay. But it's a better idea than just one GOCC. Diba? But I don't know if it's a good idea overall in terms of the Secretary of Finance might prefer na pumasok lahat and then sa GAA natin sasabihin kung saan ilalagay, no?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may just add, again, I believe the department will consolidate its comments regarding the treatment, whether it will be sourced from the proceeds or from income share or from dividends. But in line, Mr. Chair, with what you said about ensuring the availability of the funds, by putting up a SAGF, a special account in the general fund, it ensures that the funding is there because we have an identified source, but two, it also helps the national government because by putting it part of our general fund or by making the fund fungible for other sources, it also mitigates the impact of, let's say, carving out from the program proceeds already which are being received by the national government, since we are in a period of consolidation, Mr. Chair. So, again, we will provide our comments.
But hindi ba one packet of the other? So, meaning, kung hindi natin ilagay ngayon sa PAGCOR at saka sa BCDA, ibibigay doon naman nila yung dividends sa inyo. Tapos yung dividends will still be part of the income ng GAA.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So actually, our main recourse really is to get these funded through the GAA. But if the wisdom of Congress, the Senate...
The difference will be is if may i-cut out tayo sa present nilang fina-fund ngayon. Diba? So kung halimbawa, 4 ang fina-fund ngayon ng PAGCOR, magiging pang-5 to, pero makikihati ka lang dun sa 4, walang epekto dun sa dividends na binibigay sa iyo kasi hanggang dun lang. Pero if we put this 5th one over and above yung 4, maapektuhan na yung dividends ninyo from PAGCOR, di ba? Kasi mabagbago na yung computation nung... So meaning, maaring if we put this in this law, it will amend the PAGCOR law and BCDA law in terms of saan napupunta. And that might create a different problem altogether. Di ba? So anyway, I'll consult the other sponsors, authors nung but personally sa akin, kung may guarantee naman tayo na yung minimum na kailangan natin i-fund ng DBM, then let's just simplify it. Hindi pa tayo atomic. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Question lang. I've been listening earlier and looking at the bill. You mentioned earlier yung salary scale, no? I think that's a problem across the board, especially for technical people. I remember a problem with our control towers. Apparently, a lot of our aircraft control towers are going to the Middle East because their salaries is too low. But then again, you cannot not have them because how will the airport operate? No, so it's same case with this. We all know that we live in a very geologically dangerous area, if kung tama ba yung term ko. But we need also scientists and researchers to tell us what to do. No, so request ko na lang sa PHIVOLCS to submit to the committee a scale comparing us to, let's say, another country. No, for example, their PHIVOLCS equivalent in, let's say, in US. No, how much is their salary scale, or to a similarly situated country, magkano yung salary scale, so we will have some idea how far or how near are we compared to other scientists. No, and then another issue, and this came across, Mr. Chairman, over the weekend lang. No, I realized that in the school, I don't know with the gig, no, but in the school planning, when we build school buildings, there's no planning in the school, no, and a lot of our schools now don't have open spaces, or they're built somewhere near dangerous areas. I want to ask PHIVOLCS whether itong mga geohazard maps, no, that you generate, are they being cascaded to, let's say, local government units, national government? Another example will be the landslide in Mako. No, I was reading it yesterday, and apparently there are a lot of residential area or houses in that area that should have been relocated or moved out. No, so in the modernization plan, ba, are we going to be very strict with PHIVOLCS, the output of PHIVOLCS? No, because PHIVOLCS by itself is not enough. No, because you give information. At the end, the end user should use that information to mitigate danger, or to protect their constituents, or to even plan. No, kung kailangan ng relocation, how much do you need to relocate to another area or to a safer area? No, so those two items lang, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so right now, what we do is we generate hazard maps, and then of course we provide the LGUs. Once the hazard maps are approved, we send this out to the LGUs. And we also upload the hazard maps again in our Hazard Hunter PH. And anybody can look at it, can look at these hazard maps, and then check if, you know, the area where they are living are prone to earthquakes, or prone to earthquake-related hazards, volcano-related hazards, even hydromet hazards, such as flooding and landslides, earthquake-induced landslide or rain-induced landslides. They can check it. They can check these maps in the Hazard Hunter PH.
But based on your experience, do they follow the maps?
Well,
what are my penalty ba if they don't?
Wala kaming police powers to
Yeah, but,
we can only recommend. But
Okay.
it's up to the LGUs
But who
to.
should be the agency that should push the LGUs or even national government, yung mga regional offices, schools, no? Actually, when we approve schools here in the Senate, we normally request hazard maps, no? Whether the school expansion will be in a very dangerous area, no? So my question is, who enforces? What are the penalties? What do you think should be the correct way in order for agencies to follow the hazard maps?
Yeah, I think it should remain with the LGUs. We can only recommend, even with the permanent danger zone, for example, in Mayon, we can only recommend like 6-kilometer permanent danger zone. You're not supposed to venture inside. But again, the implementation would still rest on the LGU.
Do we put that in the modernization somehow?
That PHIVOLCS would.
No, not to give you police powers. No, maybe to I don't know, loosely to engage with DILG. Diba?
Oh,
To
yeah, we can-
come up with
yeah.
come up with DILG a mechanism to enforce. No.
Yeah, we can include that, but actually that's being practiced right now. I don't know if, like this is strictly implemented by the LGUs, But as for us, we recommend and we provide them with hazard maps. We give them everything, all the information that they need. And it's up to them to implement the recommendations that we have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dun sa first request ni Senator, let's comply with that. Na tignan lang natin yung how much pay certain position gets both locally but from the private sector and then sa abroad. No?
Yeah, okay.
If I'm not mistaken, Senator Win, nung binanggit mo yung air controllers, parang parati silang top ba o top 3 na most stressful job in the world, di ba? Kasi nga, isipin mo, one mistake, di ba? That's why not only are they needed, but it's also a very stressful job. Kaya mataas talaga sweldo. But that's, again, an example kay Attorney Raan kanina. Tama naman yung sinabi niya, di ba? That they have to protect the system. But having said that, there are really cases na whether it's nurses, pilots, air controllers, IT engineers. Once upon a time, we had that problem with judges. Walang gustong kumuha ng position judge in certain areas kasi napakababa din ng sweldo, fiscals and judges. No? On the second point, in preparation then, Senator, just in case you ask sa floor that question, I will check, and baka you can help me by also checking in your city then. I wonder sa building code kung may reference siya. Diba? So, kasi diba yung pinaka gas-gas na ano dyan is yung building permit eh. So, diba? So, whether there's a fire, there's a flood, there's traffic, ang unang question dyan, nabigyan ba ng building permit yan? Diba? So, I'm wondering out loud, every time, let's say, you renew the map, is it automatically, I wonder how the building official treats it. Diba? Kasi when the science is clear, so let's say the science is clear, you cannot build on top of the fault line. So, dapat yon, no building permits for that. Diba? So, but for example, if you say na certain parts of the river malambot yan, but if you build using diba, you put this kind of engineering interventions, diba, lagyang pilote, whatever, pwede yan for as long as ganito yung structure niyan. That's a different matter. That's a matter of approving the building permit if they follow. Pero yung tama si Senator Win na minsan may absolutes eh. Diba? Na bawal to dito. As you said, diba? So, if you're recommending 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers, I mean dun sa volcano, 6 kilometers, diba? Oo. How much of that is being cautious and how much that is science? No? So, if you say na 100% wala pa tayong nakikitang flow ng lava or ng spew na hindi umaabot ng 3 kilometers. So, that should be, when it's a science, you can't argue with it, di ba? When it's an additional precaution, then sometimes you argue with the LGU depending on their situation na, sir, pag 6 kilometers, wala na sa municipality namin, next municipality na yan. So, there's always arguments, di ba? Oh. Sige po, so if there's no other question on that point, if there's no objection, the committee approves in principle the modernization and will prepare the committee report. We'll forward it to you, sir, and Ma'am Lika and to others just for a quick read, di ba? Remember, dadaan pa naman to sa interpellation and sa amendments. So if there are minor amendments on the floor, it can be done naman, no? Just so that we can push this bill sooner than later.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We will move to the Philippine Nuclear Energy Safety Act. But before that, nandito na rin si Senator Win. We will, if there's no objection again, yung critical information infrastructure protection, isa sa author dito si Senator Gatchalian sa SBN 2066. But there's also SBN 863, SBN 1382, SBN 1701, and 1923. We will now refer this to a technical working group. Ganun din yung use of satellite-based technologies for internet connectivity, Senate Bill 814 again by Senator Gatchalian and Senate Bill 1380 by the Senate President. We'll refer it to the technical working group. So let's move now to the Philippine Nuclear Energy Safety. We'll take a 2-minute break. Yung gusto lang mag-restroom, but also sa PHIVOLCS, thank you very much. I know ayoko ma-traffic kayo or to take your whole day. So thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll be able to pass the bill soon. So we'll suspend for 2 minutes lang. Okay lang? Yeah. Let me start out by also officially just thanking Congressman Cojuangco for being on the ball on this, not only this year, not only in the past decade, no, but really spending so much energy and time and so much patience in explaining the issue. So I think Dr. Arcilia will have a presentation and will continue to educate us, no, not only on the need for the nuclear energy regulation for the regulatory framework, but also for the future of atomic or nuclear energy in our country. No? Go
Thank
ahead,
you, Senator Gatchalian and Cayetano. Yeah, so this is about actually the title is incomplete because this is not only about nuclear energy. Next slide, please. Most important thing is this is not about nuclear power. This is about nuclear, the safety of nuclear facilities of those with ionizing radiation. So radiation is present all over us. If you travel by plane, you will be exposed to radiation because of the thinner atmospheres. And radiation per se is not harmful. It depends on the concentrations that we have. Next slide, please. But application of nuclear energy here, number one, I'd like to emphasize is medical imaging and cancer treatment. There are about 70,000 Filipinos who are sick of cancer. 96 die every day. The reason why they die is because by the time they are diagnosed, it's already stage 4. Nararamdaman na po yung cancer. Ngayon, how do you detect the cancer before you even feel it? Let's say it's stage 1 and 2. The only way to detect that is through nuclear medicine. And it's called PET-CT scans. But PET-CT scans are very expensive. They cost about, when they were first introduced, it's 120,000, that's 60,000 per scan. So, for example, what does the scanning do? It gives the oncologists the location, the size of the cancer cells. Pag nakita po yan ng 1 or 2, pwede pa yang surgically remove. At pagkatapos ma-remove, i-scan ulit after some time kung kumalat o hindi. Ang problema po, pag nakita na sa X-ray or sa MRI, too late na po yan. Especially for women, for breast cancer. So meron kaming initiative, thanks to DBM, that will lower the cost of this. But I want to disabuse people's minds. So, pag sinasabing nuclear bomb, no. The number one thing in your mind should be like medicine. If you want to see inside your heart, your organs, it's nuclear medicine. Next slide, please. So, and then we can also use nuclear for agriculture. For example, we have a technology that's now being commercialized, yung plant growth promoter, that increases the rice output by 20% while maintaining the strength of the stalks. Actually po, if we apply this, tested in thousands of hectares, this will solve our rice issue. Kung tatanggapin lang na i-distribute sa farmers natin, kino-commercialize na po yan. Ayan niyo po, in the middle picture, yung nasa control, yung dumaan sa plant growth promoter na dinevelop namin, tsaka sa left, huge difference. And this spray is applied to leaves, anything that has leaves. Alam niyo po nung pandemic, maraming nagtanim ng mga kung ano ng mga plantita. Nakita nila yung effect nito. Unbelievable talaga. The effect is, anyway, it's not a magic trick, but it was designed by our nuclear scientists. And if you also want to preserve and export your produce, you can irradiate them. Kagandaan sa radiation, yes po. Yan po ang isang concept kasi ang problema, pag in-irradiate, magiging radioactive, not true. When you irradiate it, parang, this is some radiation, not light. Pag pinadaanan po, let's say, yung mangga ng certain radiation, lahat ng spores, virus doon patay. So which means na yung shelf life niya tatagal. So with this technology, we can export our mangoes to Europe, for example. Sa Europe kasi wala kang mabiling mangga kasi mabubulok on the way. But now that the standards have been raised and our technology is able to do that, irradiation facilities, we have only one, but it's another private investor who's going to be bringing. Yan pong ginagawa. We also do itong tinatawag sterile insect technique. Paano niya ma-reduce potentially yung dengue? Ang gagawin po niyan, kukunin yung mga lalaking lamok, tapos using nuclear techniques, babaugin sila. Sorry for the word. They will become sterile. So when they mate, wala ng eggs. So that's one way. So these are just examples. I'll just go to some others. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And then, of course, you have power generation, hydrogen production. Sinabi niyo po kanina, Senator, magkakaroon ng tawag din forensics. Nuclear forensics is important for tracing things. Okay, you can also desalinate nuclear. Ang unang nuclear plants po ay nilagay sa submarines. This is the most people don't. Nung nagpasabog ka ng nuclear bomb, unfortunately, that's the worst na ginamit. But after a few years, Admiral Hyman Rickover said, why don't we use that technology to make a propulsion system for nuclear power? And they made it submarines. Tapos yung power submarines, yun nilagay sa lupa. Next slide po. So, when we talk about nuclear, the first thing is safety. This bill is about safety, nothing else. We're not talking here about how much will the electricity cost. We just want to find out. Kung magpapatayo ng nuclear plant, yan ba ay safe? Safe sa lindol, safe sa bulkan. Tapos, pag safe yan, bahala na si DOE, bahala na yung iba. Kung magkano yung kuryente, sino magmamayari. Kami lang ang magsasabi kung safe o hindi. So dapat, yes.
So in a sense, parang FDA, di ba? So kung may 3-4 na klaseng gamot, basta't safe.
Basta't safe.
Kung ano mas mabuti, kung ano mas mura, we leave it up to the
bahala na yung public. Pero pag sinabing, let's say, gaya yan, yung Bataan Nuclear Plant, sinabi daw nasa fault sa volcano, hindi po totoo yan. Those are fake news. Kasi pumutok na yung pinatubo, walang nangyari. Nagkaroon ng earthquake nung Baguio, wala din nangyari. So this is basically about safety. And we follow the IEA guidelines. So now, why is nuclear so special? Because nuclear energy has 4 million times more energy than other energy sources. 4 million times. So ganyang kadami, meron ding risks. But there are 440 nuclear plants in the world. 100 almost in the US, operating for 60 years. They're all safe. 3 accidents in 60 years. Ang minamatayan lang po is sa Chernobyl. Sa Fukushima dahil sa earthquakes. And then we know how to do Fukushima. Anyway, next slide po. We'll just go very quickly. Ito po ang risks. Ang problema talaga ng nuclear ay yung mga fake news. Kasi maraming sine. Meron kang Oppenheimer, may Chernobyl, ang hirap kalabanin ng Hollywood. It's difficult to fight. Kasi pag sinabing ng nuclear, ang nasa isip ng tao ay bomba. Hindi na naiisip, it's nuclear, medicine, agriculture, etc. Then health risk. Next slide. So, okay, so there are many benefits. But I like this slide, but I am not so much in risk versus benefits. Kasi kung may risk ka, dapat you forgo the benefits. You don't make the plant run. Kasi you don't want to have a situation where may nuclear power plant, may konting defect. Sige, pandarin mo pa yan, baka magka-brownout. Pag may problema, hinto yan kahit na may brownout. Ganun dapat. Kahit na may brownout, hinto ang planta. Kasi hindi yan kagaya ng coal plant, hindi yan kagaya ng solar power. So that's why this bill will create the independent regulatory body that must be number 1, independent. Next slide. So we have actually, matagal na tayong naging nuclear. May mga nagsasabi, we have been nuclear. Kung dumaan po kayo dyan sa Commonwealth, kayo po, you've been to Congress, nung bago yung Technohub, may itlog dyan. Dun sa may Commonwealth. Yung itlog pong yan ay the containment structure of a research reactor. It has been there since the 1960s. May fuel po yun. The fuel in a research reactor is 10 times richer than a nuclear plant, pero mas konti siya. What is the containment structure? So pag may aksidente, doon lang siya. And then we restarted that kasi it stopped in 1988. We made a smaller reactor, Philippine made, and we started it last year. Ang problema, kami ang gumawa, kami rin na maglilisensya. This is why the need for the independent regulatory is needed. Dapat ihiwalay yung naglilisensya doon sa research sa nagpo-promote. Yan po yung main na dahilan. So meron na po tayong 5207, hindi pa yan for example, that is the basis for us giving licenses. That has not been repealed. Okay? And there was also executive order in 1987 where Corazon Aquino put PNRI, PAEC under DOST. Dati kasi yung PAEC reporting to the President. Ginawa po ni Presidente Aquino, pinasok niya sa DOST. Naging PNRI po. But the licensing still belongs to PNRI. Ako po yung pumipirma ng mga lisensya ng mga hospital. Hindi po yung secretary ng DOST. Next slide. So ito po yung structure namin. Meron kaming Atomic Research Division. Meron kaming regulatory divisions. We're both regulator and promoter, which is not a good situation. That's why the bill hopes to cure this deficiency. Next slide. So, for example, regulatory structure, yung mga nuclear medicine like yung mga cyclotrons, PET CT scans, kami nag-regulate. Yung mga X-ray, ionizing radiation source, ang nag-regulate po as CFDA, yung CDRR. Ang gagawin nitong bill, kukunin yung regulatory sa dalawa, pag-iisahin sa isang ahensya. Thanks. The next slide, please. For example, a PET CT scan, to operate, kailangan mo ng dalawang permit. Kailangan ng permit sa PNRI, kailangan ng permit sa FDA. So, pag nagkaroon ng isang ahensya na lang, iisa na lang ang permit na magbibigay. No? I'm not talking about nuclear plants. Ha? Next slide po. Next slide. If you look at the nuclear organization in Asia, many countries have separated the regulatory from the promotional. For example, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, lahat sila hiniwalay na yung promotion sa regulation. Pero tayo, magkasama pa. So, magkasama po, PNRI. So, promoter ako at saka regulator. Two hats.
Sir, sorry. On that point lang, I was just talking to the COMSEC. So, sa ibang bansa ko, ganun din, hindi FDA.
Nakahiwalay, na ano po? Nahiwalay na po sila.
Yeah.
So, for example, like sa Thailand, meron silang Office of Atoms for Peace. Yan, yung regulatory. Tapos meron silang Thailand Institute of Nuclear Technology, yung promoter nila.
No, I agree totally. It makes sense na hindi na maghiwalay yung regulatory. Just dun sa point na, for example, for the hospital equipment, hindi na FDA yon. It will be the new regulatory.
FDA pong, hospital na may X-rays yung may ionizing radiation. So, kukunin na po yung CDRR section nila, kukunin yung nilalagay yun sa fill atom, yung bago.
And that's the practice of different countries then.
Yes po. Sa ano po, I was just in Korea, sa Korea po. Korea, by the way, started the nuclear program same time as us. Now they have 25 nuclear power plants. Kalahati ng kuryente natin ng rate nila. They have a Korea Institute of Nuclear Safety. Independent po yun. Bawat plantang itatayo, may inspection, may nakatayo doon sa planta.
Yan yung South pa lang. Yung North, meron din Korea, meron din nuclear power.
Thank you po. Hindi ko po nasabi niya. So, sa North Korea, nuclear bomb yun. Pero wala silang kuryente. Madilim. Yun po. Pero yan po yung sistema. Next slide po. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. So, anyway, ang problema namin, meron na kaming 500 licenses like this, and so we need of course we need people. Next slide. Okay, so this is dapat ang gagawin pong framework, it should be a strong independent nuclear regulatory authority. There will be other laws that will have to be made on nuclear, right? Like for example, how to harmonize this with the PIRA, how to yung nuclear waste disposal, financing, etc. But the safety is first. I have to say this, one of the most important developments in nuclear in the past few months is the decision of private companies like Meralco and Aboitiz and Razon to go nuclear. They want to go nuclear. But sabi nila, hindi sila papasok pag walang natayong independent regulatory body. So dapat pumapasa.
And that's also because may effect yun dun sa international, di ba?
Yes po. Pag wala tayong independent regulatory body, by the way, the nuclear is the only energy body in the world na may international regulatory body under the United Nations because, yes, there are 3 S's. Safety, public safety. Number 2, security so that the materials do not fall into terrorist hands, and number 3, safeguard so that the country do not make nuclear weapons.
Yeah, just for the record, I mean, obvious reasons because nga kung magka-problema ka sa any one of the 3S, it's not a national problem, it's an international
Yes, sir.
problem. So
Yes.
the importance of passing this bill is really also compliance with international.
And no one will sell us nuclear technology kung wala tayong independent regulatory. Then we will not buy. Anyway, ganito po eh. And regarding po doon sa safeguards, we have a constitutional prohibition on nuclear weapons. Sabi nga ng iba, nuclear is not prohibited by the Constitution, it's only nuclear weapons. So it's but not nuclear technologies. Kasi may nakita ako sa UP, nuclear free. I'm a professor of UP, by the way. I'm on loan to to PNRI. Sabi ko nga sa kanila, yung mga estudyante hindi alam kung anong sinasabi nila. Kasi kung nagpapa-X-ray ka, gumagamit ka ng nuclear technologies, no? Kung ang tatay mo, kapatid mo ay may cancer, no, nuclear free, di itapon mo na lang sila, no? Huwag mo lang papuntahin sa hospital, no? So yun po. Anyway, let's go quickly. Next slide. So ito po yung PhilAtom bill, okay? So I'll just napasa na po yata to sa lower house, okay? But there may be some versions that will come out. Next slide. Next. So safe, secure, and responsible. Next slide. Yan po, sinabi ko na yung 3 S. Tapos, radiation protection, important yan. By the way, kasi ang isang problema po dito kasi ang dami talagang sining mga mga anti-nuclear mga zombie, yung mga lahat ng pag dumaan ka sa X-ray, magiging green ka. Pag binibigay ko po yung aking calling card, sabi ng mga iba, oy, malayo, magiging green na ba ako? Ikaw ay nag-glow in the dark? Mga ganun po. So we have to re-educate the people on this. Next slide po. Next. Tagal. Ang isa pang hindi namin pag-uusapan dito, stuck na yata yung Anyway, let me just say a few words. Nandito po si Senator Gatchalian. We've been together visiting a nuclear plant and he's still very handsome, di ba po? Pumunta kami sa Crisco nuclear power plant, the sister plant of the BNPP some years ago. And then, so ito pong importante, free from undue influence, such as political pressures or economic interests. This is really important. Next slide. So, highest standards, and we already know this. Yung po, by the way, ang ginagawa ng PNRI, hindi lang, alam niyo po ba, kami ang nagtetest kung ang toyo nyo o yung suka, ang honey, ay totoo o hindi. Using stable isotope techniques. Nalaman na namin yan, some years. So, may nagbebenta ng fake honey, ng fake, kung ano-ano, mga fake, mga organics. Yung mga true organics versus hindi itong organics, malalaman po niyan sa PNRI. Kami nagtetest po niyan. That's the research part of the things. Sa Korea po, yung KERI, yung research institute nila, hiniwalay doon sa regulator. Ang laki ng yung research, nagde-develop sila ng maraming products. And
sa atin, Doc, anong nire-recommend niyo? Yung research will be with?
The research, PNRI, will remain with the UST.
Okay.
Then the PhilAtom
Purely regulatory.
will regulatory. Tutira po kami doon sa binibigyan na kami ng lupa doon sa BCDA din. Okay?
Pati ba yung suka, tinetest niyo o toyo lang?
Suka, toyo, lahat.
Tama ba yan yung suka daw? Pag nilagyan mo ng ginto, pag kumupas yung ginto, tunay yung suka. Pag hindi kumupas yung ginto, tunay yung hindi tunay yung suka.
Narinig ko po yan nung nagtuturo pa ako. Ganito po yan. Ang test talaga ng ginto ay ganito. Para na lang. Kasi I'm professor of geology. Estudyante ko nga yan, silika di ba? The density of gold is 19. The density of ordinary metal is 5 or 8. So sobrang bigat. Actually there's no word for density. Check. What's the Tagalog word in density? Kasinsinan. Kasinsinan. Kasi gaano kasiksik. So yung pang-test. Pero marami po kaming test. Inimbitahan namin kayo, bisitahin yung marami kayong mga pang-test doon sa PNRI. Makakatuwa talaga. Next. Yung sa Itlog, yung sa likod ng Techno Hub, sa harap po ng iglesia. Kami po, sa harap nung, sa harap po ng iglesia. Yung New Era, doon po kami. 8 hectares, nang babayad kami ng 40 million pesos a year sa UP. Lupa ng UP po. Magtatayo po kami doon, Senator, ng Nuclear Medicine Research Center that will lower the cost of PET CT scans to 20,000. Salamat po sa DBM. Hopefully, it will be within 2 or 3 years. I mean, mapatayo po lang namin yon, malaking impact po sa ating mga kababayan na may cancer. Thank you. Anyway, next slide. Halos tapos na po ito eh. Yun lang yung ano. Yan po yung PhilAtom po yung gagawin. Regulatory activities. Next slide. So anyway, tapos marami pang conventions and treaties na kailangang sundan. For example, we have conventions on, alam niyo po, pag nagkaroon ng accident, we are required to tell our neighbors that there's an accident. Ito ang hindi ginawa ng Soviet Union ng Chernobyl. Napakalaking krimen. Pangalawa, pagbombahin ang isang nuclear plant, it's a crime against humanity. That's why in Zaporizhia, in the Ukraine war, the IAEA sent inspectors there to make sure. Anyway, no, yan po, ang nagbabantay po niyan kami, yung treaties, non-proliferation. Next slide po. So yan. Anyway, kung saan ilalagay, by the way, saan ilalagay nuclear waste? I'll give you an idea. Kasi ganito po, ang nuclear waste will last for 10,000 years. So, how will you keep it away from humans? It should be geologic disposal, deep geologic burial. Tapos may technology na tayo dahil ang geothermal drill na malalim po yung pagbubutas, you can put it there and plug it and put it in an island. Dapat may disposal sa nuclear waste sa start pa lang ng nuclear program. Kasi ang nangyari po sa Europe, sa US, dinelay nila yung programa. So, yun po. Yeah.
Sir, on that point, I don't envy your job of having to educate everyone, no? Kasi I mean, it might seem obvious, di ba? For example, yung effect ng coal, di ba? Versus yung nuclear. Pero dahil nadidisperse at hindi mo kita, but kaming mga hikain, nararamdaman namin.
Of course.
Di ba? So, I don't envy that job, but baka that will be one of the major hurdles talaga. Di ba? Is really educating people as you've been doing this past few minutes. So we have session is going to start in 15 minutes, so we can do 10 minutes. I'll give it to Senator Win muna. If there are any
I can stop
questions.
I can stop.
Yeah. Sige, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The radiant Senator.
Totoo ho yun. Kasama ko si Dr. Caloy in several trips to visit the plant. And I remember we were talking about the Bataan nuclear power plant. Sabi ni Dr. Caloy, it's virtually brand new. Wala raw atom na tumatama. Dahil walang atom na tumatama doon, lamok lang ang tumatama. Lamok lang. But kidding aside, Mr. Chairman, I've been tracking nuclear power, no, together with Dr. Caloy. And after the Russian invasion, the world has changed its mindset. A lot of countries, the US, even Taiwan, even Germany, had to rethink, no, and decided to slowly expand their nuclear power plants and their nuclear power. And I emphasize on slowly, no, because of the risk and the safety involved. But the way I see it throughout the world is the advanced countries are again taking nuclear very seriously as part of their energy mix. No? And then at the same time, the push to achieve the COP21 targets, no, which is below 2 degrees centigrade pre-industrial levels, is also getting stronger. No, so again, the world is looking for new clean source of energy. And again, they're looking at nuclear as a solution to that. So nuclear doesn't emit carbon emissions, but admittedly, the safety issue, as what Dr. Caloy mentioned, is a very important point that we need to look at. And the way I understand the proposal, including my proposal, is this will focus on that safety aspect, no? Because a lot of for laymen like us, it's really the safety that is a sticking point to all of us. So that's why I also am approaching nuclear power with a lot of caution, no? And we have to start with the safety aspect. How do we assure and ensure, no, our constituents that in the quest to go into nuclear, we have all the regulatory agencies, the safeguards, and the talent, no, to assure our public that safety is primordial, no? Putting this together is one point, no? Staffing it with talented people is another challenge. So that's what I want to meron pa ba tayong time, Mr. Chairman? But that's what I want to put focus on, some of the finer details of the bill, no? For example, yung talent, Dr. Caloy. We all know that in the past we have the talent, no? But because we had to close down our Bataan nuclear power plant, a lot of our talents went abroad, no? But how do we? Because the office is only as good as its talent, no? So how do we now? How long? How do we develop the talent? And what kind of talent do we need in order to make sure that safety is primordial?
So thank you, Senator, for that. First, for the talents, the research reactor that we have will be the basis for training, because any nuclear plant has to study neutrons, and it's only produced in research reactors. So meron na tayo. UP, LaSalle, and Mapua are restarting their nuclear programs. So we're in fact teaching in those universities. Last month, I'm very happy that a Filipino just finished his PhD in nuclear engineering at Texas A&M University in 4 years. Walang extension, bumalik. He's working with me. Kaya nga lang, SRS-1. So ang problema, SRS-1, ang baba ng sweldo niya. Science Research Signed 1. No? I mean, ay naku, pag nalaman, sinabihan ko na si Meralco at saka si Aboitis, huwag niyong kukunin kasi hindi ko pipinuhan lisensya niya. I mean, kasi you cannot blame, but we will be sending. I am in touch with universities abroad. I have sent many of my students abroad. Ayaw pumunta kasi ng iba abroad kasi anong babalikan namin kung wala man nuclear program? But if there is a nuclear program, there will be. So I'm not. And then also po, Senator, yung mga umalis nung 1987, pa-retire na sila. Some of them have been writing to me saying, I can help you. I have made my money in the US. I can help. And I have been visited by some of those. No, but if we build a nuclear plant, isa lang naman o dalawang kailangan nuclear. Ang mahirap po dyan yung mga welders. Yung mga operators. Nakita niyo po sa Crisco, the operators are not even college graduates. But the 4 brand new nuclear power plants built by the Koreans in the UAE, under cost and under time, many of the engineers are Filipinos. And sabi nga ng isang manager doon sa Baracan nuclear plant, Amerikano, ang napasaho taga Bohol. Nagbabakasyon siya dito. Nakausap ko ako, sabi niya, many of these Filipinos will come back if you start a nuclear program and if you have competitive salaries. So that's the hope that we have. And we're starting on the grade school. We will have next year the International Nuclear Science Olympiad. It will be held in the Philippines. Mga taga Pisay po yung mag-represent. So
observation with for example, ERC, our regulators, their challenge is always they have to outsmart the one being regulated. For example, Meralco and NGCP, because these private corporations they can give very high salaries, they can hire the best people, and then the regulator is capped, with limited resources. So what happened with ERC is the regulator, the one being regulated, the regulatee, is always outsmarting the regulator kasi they have better salary grade and ano. With our new regulator, will this be a problem? Because obviously mga mag-a-apply dito, mga big corporations, no, much more experience. But this regulator, this new regulator, will now be in charge of reviewing the safety aspects,
that's right.
reviewing licenses. Hindi ba magkakaroon tayo ng problem because of our salary?
Nakalagay po sa bill that we will try to match the salary grades of like the US. Yung sinasabi niyo po kanina, yung standard, nakalagay na po sa bill yun. Tapos even the benefits will be coming from the electricity produced. May GAA but meron ding a certain percent. Because it's true. Because if you don't pay your regulators, then in the US, by the way, they have nearly 100 nuclear power plants. Each plant has 2 in-house regulators. Na pag may problema, sila mag-report agad. Pero nakalagay po sa bill na sasweldohan sila ng tama. Pati na po yung, for example, how will you fund also the commissioning or the waste disposal kung tapos na a certain amount of the electric bill will be set aside. In the US, there's a huge amount of money coming from their nearly 100 operating nuclear plants, operating for 60 years. So, ang laki-laking perang yun eh. May isang nagnenegosyo nga, ang gagawin niya, siya na magdi-decommission kasi yung revenues nandyan na, tapos iaan na lang niya. You know, and it's easy to nuclearize, meaning a nuclear plant is only 10 to 15% nuclear. Most of it is still balance of plant, typical electric plants. So, marami tayong mga engineers. Madali pong i-nuclearize yung engineers.
Talent, how long do we need to develop the talent to staff all of this this new regulator? Because I hindi ko alam yung hindi ko masyadong sure no what type of talent pool do we need. For example, mga nuclear scientists, nuclear engineers. Do we even have those existing talent?
Now in this country, we have 3 PhDs that have PhDs in nuclear engineering. One is my good friend, si Dr. Chris Acosta. He finished his PhD at MIT. But he's a president of a mining company. Sabi ko nga sa kanya, dapat palit tayo ng trabaho kasi I'm a geologist, dapat ako dyan sa mining company saka dito ka sa amin. Pero hindi ko pwedeng tapatan yung sweldo niya. Another is Dr. Aleta, who was in the IAEA, PhD from Cornell University, and have the latest one, Dr. Ronald Gatchalian from Bulacan, 29 years old, nuclear engineer, Texas A&M. We don't need a lot of them, but if we offer them...
Magagaling ho talaga.
No?
May usal Gatchalian dito.
Gatchalian.
Chair, if I may add.
Taga Bulacan po, Ronald Gatchalian. He's a very good kid. And as I said, being a professor, it's not, I'm confident we can meet it kasi we will not build a nuclear plant tomorrow. There'll be about 5 years.
And tama, Doc, hindi from scratch, di ba? Kasi when we create this, yung regulators who are now in...
Yes, we already regulate many things. For example, yung fuel, we regulate many things already. And our people are
same thing sa FDA, di ba? If those who want to move to continue to regulate yung X-rays, and they can.
Yes.
So yung concern na lang is when we're ready for a nuclear power plant.
Yeah. But if this bill, for example, hopefully the bill will pass this year. Because if this bill passes this year and then the companies will make a decision to do, because it will take several years. So this gives us some headway. Meralco is collaborating with us. We have a nuclear training center. Okay, so maybe to help train their engineers. Anyway,
there are so many interesting questions, and of course, while we will focus on having this for the 3S, napupunta talaga sa whether or not advantageous yung nuclear energy o hindi. No? But for the purpose of passing this bill, we'll try as much as possible to separate it. So
that's right.
Maybe just so that hindi tayo ma-delay, because nga sinabi ko kay Congressman Cojuangco, I'll really try to get it on the floor ASAP. If there's no violent reaction, let's approve it in principle, but we can have a small group pa rin, both as a prep for the sponsorship and the interpellation, but also for additional questions.
Yes, we'll be
Parang a sort of a special TWG after this, but if it's okay, we'll finish the committee report this week give you a copy, send you a copy. May ilan comments lang si Congressman Cojuangco about putting an extra push na may provision about energy mix or promoting this. So I'm looking at that, but I'm consulting also the other senators kasi there's two ways of doing talaga the committee report, diba? Put in everything controversial, then let them take it out, diba? Or put it something that will pass, then try to put it back in the amendment. So it really depends on the temperament, diba, and the working relationship. So what I'm doing, I'm asking Congressman Cojuangco dahil kausap na niya most of the senators who's for and against just this bill, who's for and against nuclear energy, then we'll take it from there. No, but if there's no objections, I'd like to approve in principle, no, subject to the style. Itong
Mr. Chairman, I heard earlier, Dr. Caloy, that this is only focused on the regulator, no? As so far as let's say the rates, the policy on the energy mix, policy on whether they will use nuclear energy as a source of power. That's a separate issue, no?
Yes, Senator. Yeah, that's
so
very
this is really focused
Safety.
on safety
Yeah.
and establishing the regulator.
Right.
Okay.
That's the most important po. Because I don't want to be burdened. I'm not an economist. I'd like my people to say, this plant is safe. By the way, with this current law, I'll be the one to sign that license. I will not sign if it's not safe. But kung tatanong, magkano bang kuryente, pumunta na kayo sa
Or kung
DOE.
gagamit tayo,
gagamit tayo,
gagamit.
hindi na namin decision yun.
And yun ang mali natin sa incinerator, for example, di ba? When we banned the technology, it seemed to be smart at that time. Kasi at that time, parang walang technology na malinis yung na walang emission. But now, if you know, for example, sa Gangnam, di ba, sa most expensive parts of Korea, meron silang mga incinerator na wala. So, we're not saying that we're promoting or not promoting nuclear energy. What we're saying is we're putting a regulatory body which can assess the safety, diba, of the use of nuclear power in the country.
Yes.
So at that, we'll have a technical working group tomorrow, but on the agreement that dinadraft na nila yung final committee report. No? So if there's no objections, we'll go ahead, Lika. We have 1 minute
Not
left. Sorry, we
exactly
have
an
to-
objection,
Yeah.
sir, but as I am instructed by Dr. Alfredo Lagmay of UPRI, we will be submitting position paper regarding this bill because apparently we were sent for 3 bills, and we would like to review all of them. And since we also have one in the Congress, we will be sending our official.
The suggestions or even objections are most welcome. 2 things lang. We'll have the TWD tomorrow, and it's solely on the creation of the regulatory body. So meaning if you would like to include whether you're for or against nuclear, that's up to you. But actually yung concern ng committee first and foremost is the regulatory body. So think of it as a controversial drug, diba? We're creating the FDA. So it's not even, so we're creating a agency that can tell us as an agency whether or not that drug is safe or not. And even if they say it's not safe, it's still a policy decision whether or not to approve said, hindi automatic yung approval. So if we approve it and they say that X nuclear reactor is safe, it's still a policy decision by the government whether or not to. If they say it's not safe, then the policy decisions become very clear na. So I won't adjourn. I'll suspend muna para if we have to have another hearing. Thank you very much, Senator Gatchalian. Thank you to the USEC Gatchalian, to the PhD Gatchalian, Doc, thank you, and to all of our guests sa Red Cross, sa ating mga kaibigan sa military, maraming salamat. So the hearing is hereby adjourned. I apologize, we just have to, the hearing is suspended. We have to run